Oh, I don't know. What should I show you? Yeah, here's a good one. Here's a good one. I'm grumpy today, man. I am. I'm just grumpy today. It's grumpy day today. Like, I feel like I just keep having, hey, Famita, how you doing? I feel like I keep having the stupidest possible conversations with people. Like, really, like, hateful, spite-filled, like the type of people who like literally would see somebody drowning and think to themselves, oh, we can't get them out of the water. How will they ever learn how to swim? Like, uh, uh, driving by in yachts, saying to people who are drowning, like, just swim harder, right? Like, hey, Nova Scotia, how you doing, bud? Chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. This year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Yeah. Did you see the comic I posted in the Discord? It explains the first chapter of the Communist Manifesto for a fourth-year economics sociology class. Also posted the worksheet that goes with it. Has quotes. My goodness, Famita, look at you. Doing the work. Doing the work. Where'd you put it? Where'd you put it? Where are you putting it? Is this it here? Instead of manufacturing insulin, guns. Let's educate the population, give them the means to Oh, I can read. Collectivize, force them all into one place, and make sure that their lives are awful. Surely that won't backfire on us. Give them guns. Hold on. That was 6. Here we go. Hold on. These are out of order. Historical materialism, feudalism, class conflict, capitalism, class conflict, socialism. All right. No, hold on. I love this. This is great. Look at you. Championship mode here. Here we go. Capitalism. Proletariat. Operates relation to production. Means of production. I love it. This should be a sickle. Hello. Come on, Famita. Gotta keep it on brand. Bourgeoisie. Owns relation to production. I have a criticism, Famita. The ratio here is way off, right? Like, there should be one guy here in a top hat, always with the top hat and the monocle, and there should be like 1 billion people here. Like, there should just be so many that it's in, like, you can't actually count all of them. I understand there are practical limitations. I understand. Let's see, where's 3? So we go to 3, commodification. Life as a tree is great, but I'd also be pretty useful as a chair. Refinement and production. Materials, $150. Labor time, 4 hours. Price, $250. I'll save you tons on orthopedic shoes. This is delightful. Under capitalism, this process is controlled by the bourgeoisie and acted out by the proletariat. Good. Then we go to 4. Class conflict. Let's burn it all down. I haven't eaten in 3 days. We deserve equal compensation. Rising mortality rates from austerity is okay, though. Destruction of private property is a criminal offense. Must maintain status quo. I have private jets to pay for. More money. Yeah. And then we're at 5. Where are you, 5? Here we go. Get back to work. You aren't being paid to use your brain. You know this took a lot of effort to produce. I think I should be paid more, considering I'm 12 and make $50 an hour. If we did it this way instead, it would be safer and benefit the consumer. Capitalism yields the death of innovation and the proliferation of alienation. And this one, we already went through this one. Give them guns. How could this possibly backfire? And 7, capitalism, class conflict, socialism, revolution. And then socialism. Get rid of these guys right here. Get rid of them. Means of production, proletariat. Oh, so this is what full feels like. From each according to their ability to each according to their needs. Marx, 1875. Yeah, great. Like, it's not difficult to understand. Like, this is the thing that I think is so shocking, is that we genuinely think like we think it's normal to have bosses and owners. Like, that's what I think is that we refuse to call the system what it is, which is a wage slave system, right? 50 cents. Perfect. Oh, I said $50. 50 cents. You're right. That didn't make any sense. Like a 12-year-old making $50 an hour. I think my brain just assumed, like, yeah, inflation will get that bad. That's sort of where I went. Oh, man. Yeah, like, we're getting into a ridiculous phase with the inflation, right? The whole thing is coming off the rails. And it is getting to the point now where, like, you've got... the Ottawa Citizen has always been pretty good. Denley especially, if you ask me. Randall Denley. Randall Denley is actually the guy who was reporting on the Azov Battalion, right? So this guy's actually telling the truth, more or less, right? The federal and Ontario governments have each announced new rules that they pretend will do something to control sky-high housing prices. Unfortunately, things such as taxing or restricting foreign ownership and urging municipalities to speed up housing approvals don't attack the fundamental problem. One suspects both governments are well aware of that. At least the feds and the province agree that there is a shortage of supply in the broader housing market.
For Liberals, this is progress, expanding their concern beyond moderately increasing the supply of subsidized housing. For the federal government, what's missing is an acknowledgement of the connection between the inadequate housing supply and the ever-increasing demand. The new federal budget laments the lack of housing, but the government will increase immigration, adding about... It's always immigration with these guys, though. Like, I gotta tell you. Like, it's always, like, forget about the fact that, like, big, giant corporations are hoarding, right? Forget about the fact that there's, like, a massive amount of hoarding going on in the market. Like, that just doesn't get discussed. Like, is even Denley, like, I was just saying how good I like this guy. Is he even gonna talk about it? So, immigration, okay. Well, shortage of supply drives up housing costs, so do the taxes levied on new homes, right? Are we talking about the hoarding? Where's the hoarding? The land transfer tax. The federal and provincial governments are working hard to deflect blame, blah, blah, blah. A recent provincial report concluded that vastly increased density is necessary, including adding business problems, People don't want it. So, like, literally, just no mention. Like, this is what's annoying about the housing conversation, right? And I'm getting pretty, like, irritated by it. Like, because it's really obvious. Like, multiple property holders own up to 41% of housing in some province. Like, come on. New data from Statistics Canada shows multiple property owners hold between 29 and 41% of the housing stock in Ontario, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick in 2019 and 20. The data from the Canadian Housing Statistics Program, which includes both residential and recreational holdings, reveals multi-property ownership accounted for 41% of Nova Scotia's housing stock, 39% of New Brunswick, 31% of Ontario's, and 29% of British Columbia. Multiple property owners totaled 22% of all owners in Nova Scotia, 20% in New Brunswick, 16% in Ontario, and 15% in British Columbia. Similar to many markets across Canada, Nova Scotia Finance Minister Alan McMaster said the province has been dealing with tight housing supply and surging home prices. Yeah, I can't imagine what's going on, right? Like, what do you think's going on? Like, you're removing, like, 20% of your housing and just giving it to other people who like, at best, your best case scenario is that they'll become landlords, right? Like, what do you think is happening here? It doesn't take a genius to figure this out at all. We've got the housing, right? It's just being hoarded by these, like, useless, worthless parasites. And we just seem incapable of confronting it. Like, I've even been posting this around. And usually, I'm used to, like, when I post things around, I'm used to getting, like, a pushback. I'm used to people actually commenting on it and pushing back against it. And it's just dead silence. No one wants to genuinely confront the reality of the situation, right? Everyone wants to believe, like, we'll just build more housing. We just need to rezone. Like, no, you don't. Your society has been taken over by a group of rapacious psychopaths who are literally fine with you being homeless. Like, they're completely fine with it. Like, they genuinely don't care. Like, if you're homeless on the street getting beat up by the cops, they'll laugh at you. Like, I've been talking to people all day today, and that's their response. Their response is to smirk and laugh at people who get beat up on the streets by cops. Like, that's what we're looking at. And so they're just, like, literally fine with this. Like, I really think that's what's happening, is that we're complaining because prices are getting too high, but we're not complaining about the problem, we're complaining to the problem, and we're asking them permission for us to have reasonable housing, right? Without realizing, like, that's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to go down that way. Like, these people have detached completely from reality. Like, they don't live in reality. And if the degree to which they do is just how can we exploit more people for profit? Like, we're really there. Hey, Major, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. And I'm just blown away that, like, no one's talking about it. Like, we've removed 20% of the housing market. What do you think's going to happen? The Statistics Canada data shows that the top 10% of owners earn more than the bottom 50% combined, with the top 10% of owners in Ontario and British Columbia earning yearly incomes above 125,000. The same tranche of data also shows between 2018 and 19, the number of first-time home buyers increased by 17% in New Brunswick, 9% in Nova Scotia, and 9% in British Columbia. So what that means is you've got people going to these places, buying homes for the first time, and they buy like 2 or 3, right? Because they've got the capital to be able to do so. The data's release comes less than a week after the federal government announced a slew of housing measures meant to make homes more affordable for first-time buyers and temporarily less accessible for non-residents. Like, this problem is going to get significantly worse. Like, significantly worse. And it's going to get worse because we are ignoring the problem. Like, simply saying there is a problem. Yeah, if your salary can't cover the mortgages on your rental properties, then you shouldn't qualify to buy homes. Landlords who choose to exacerbate the housing crisis by becoming Airbnb should pay more tax. Or, like, we just shouldn't allow it to happen. Like, this is the thing that kills me the most. Like, it's not difficult to figure out that, like, if there are homeless people, people should not own multiple properties, right? Like literally, what we are saying is it's completely fine for one person to walk up to the buffet table and take the entire buffet for themselves and leave with it before anyone else gets a plate, right? Like, when I was growing up, everybody got a plate before anybody else got a second plate, right? Like, it's really very, very straightforward and easy to implement. It's actually shockingly easy to implement. Like, this is the thing that nobody actually wants to talk about. Like, but we are getting to the point now where we, like, here's something I watched today. This might get me demonetized, but I don't care. Like, I saw this from, this came from David Dole. So I'm going to play this and hopefully do a start-stop on it so the algorithm doesn't pick me up. Like, bear witness to the psychopath culture we live in. I've never seen a more well, that's not true. I have seen clear illustrations of the psychopath culture we live in. Like, when a Fox News correspondent said that a hungry dog is an obedient dog in regard to starving the working class back to work, right? But here you're going to see just like the psychopath culture writ large.
If you were around where I was at the weekend, there was queues and queues of people possibly panic buying, which is what some of the companies are saying.
I didn't see panic buying, but I did see a lot of forecourts that had sold out.
Yeah, and
worried people driving around.
Yes, and of course we've got 21.5 million people on the road this week for Easter.
Yep.
And of course, you know, there are lots of questions over whether there's going to be enough fuel for everybody because of these protests that have been going on. And the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has called the protest by eco-activists as selfish and fanatical. Demonstrations were held across the weekend in oil depots and on bridges in central London, which saw dozens of people arrested. It affected the Midlands too.
So I don't know why they've censored this, but this is blacked out. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing. So it's like they took footage of the protests that are going on, the climate change protests that are going on, and now they're like blanking it out. And maybe they've done that just to make sure that everybody's identity and so on and so forth.
And it may well spread across the country if these protests carry on.
Well, obviously the climate activists involved say that they need to bring an end to the use of fossil fuels. So are they in danger of turning people off that cause by these actions?
Are oil protests justified? Sure, we're burning down the civilization, but should people complain about it? Like, the gaslighting begins.
Let's have a chat. Joining us now to discuss this is Miranda Wheelahan. She's a Just Stop Oil activist. She says that we have to move away from oil for good. And journalist Larry Turner, who thinks that activists are irritating when they disrupt travel and they block roads. We'll come to you in a minute, Larry. Many people would agree that we have to wean ourselves off oil. We have to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. We have to develop renewables. I certainly feel that. But at the same time, they deeply resent having their personal lives massively interrupted by the actions that people like you are taking. They can't get fuel for their cars. They can't get fuel for their central heating systems. They worry that if something bad happens, that an ambulance won't get to them because that won't have fuel. Do you accept that you're possibly alienating people who, in a general sense, would support your background cause?
No, they don't support your background cause. Like, let's be real clear. If you're bitching and whining at people who are protesting against climate change, you don't support them. Like, let's forget this idea that we're alienating people. Like, you're not going to support the cause in the first place. Like, it's like these people who step over homeless people and tell them to get a job, turn around and say, like, if you protest against that treatment, they'll say, oh, you're alienating me. It's like, no, bro, like, yeah, I mean, yes, I want to alienate you because you're the villain. Like, you're a psychopath. We're supposed to be alienating. Hold on, we're going to play this and then I'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't think any of us want to be disrupting people's lives, but I think given the science and the things that academics are saying about what oil is causing around the world, and in this country too, this is the level of action that needs to be taken when our government is failing on their energy policies and their climate pledges.
But you'd accept, wouldn't you, that it's a very complicated discussion to be had. It's a very complicated thing. And this Just Stop Oil slogan is very playgroundish, isn't it? It's very Vicky Pollard. It's quite...
Like, he's literally calling her a child. Like, this guy's a psycho. Yep.
Actually very simple. We need to stop new oil licensing, and that's what we're asking. You know, with the oil reserves that we have now and the oil fields that we have that are still going, that would provide us with 8 years of oil if we said no to new oil, and that's what we're asking for.
But how do the blockades advance that argument? They don't, do they? They simply cause nothing but disruption.
What a fucking dumb moron this guy is. Like, how do protests move political discussions? Like, what a fucking idiot. This guy's a journalist. He's an anchor. Like, he literally is on television as a news anchor. Like, so they're hiring illiterate boobs or people who are being stupid on purpose, right? Obviously.
And you get a negative reaction. I've got to tell you, we were expecting to get some messages of support from our viewers for you. We haven't had one, not one. We've had nothing but furious complaints from people. Nothing positive at all.
Like, so he's just lying, obviously, right? And yeah, of course, the only people that, like, a hack corporate media are gonna actually listen to are the people who support their cause. So, like, this is a death cultist arguing for a death cult, very straightforwardly.
And if any of you have read the latest IPCC reports that have come out this year.
No, of course they haven't. They're illiterate.
You know, what they have said is that we are on the road for climate catastrophe. We are on the road for 3 degrees of warming. This will happen to my generation, to your children's generation, potentially to your grandchildren.
Yeah, they don't care about that. They don't care about that.
And I think we have a moral responsibility to act now.
We got to stop with the idea of a moral responsibility. These people have no morality. Like, their morality is their own lives. Like, they want to go to brunch and get their little nom-noms and have a bunch of servants, right? And they literally do not care if their children get crucified and die afterwards. Like, they don't care. They have there is no morality. Stop using the moral argument. They don't care about it.
You know, we're supposed to be climate leaders. We're geopolitical leaders. We could set the way for the whole planet by committing to stopping oil, moving to energy efficiency, moving to renewables, moving to insulation. And I think the children and the future deserve at least that.
There are, from I think 2020, Larry, the source of UK electricity from renewables outstripped what we use from fossil fuels. So we are, as a country, moving in the right direction, but clearly not as fast as we should be. And that is the problem. There's a sense of urgency that the eco-activists have, that they fear that the rest of us don't embody that. And certainly government policy might not be... Okay,
I gotta pause for a minute, because this woman is a demon. Like, this woman's literally a demon. If bad things happen to this woman, good. Like, if I was watching a movie and something really horrible happened to this woman, I would laugh and clap my hands.
You know, reacting to that sense of urgency, which is required.
I think the problem I have is this idea that the one group of people have decided that they are the ones to save the world. And there's a certain po-faced, incredible...
Yeah, because you're not, you fucking psycho bitch.
It'll be irritating. I'm getting it coming off in waves towards me here. Like...
Yeah, it's normal to hate psychopaths.
Like, how dare you question us because we know what's right? I'm going to glue my hand to some tarmac and then I'm going to be a martyr and I'm going to be a good person while the rest of us...
This is the only way that a person who is bereft of morality and is incapable of understanding morality can perceive the actions of another, right? That clearly what these climate activists must be doing is to inflate their own ego, because that's the only thing that makes me do anything. Right? I don't do anything out of a sense of service or community or from a moral purpose or any larger thing. The only time I do any kind of action is to inflate my own ego, right? And so obviously that must be what they are doing.
Us can't get on with our day. I mean, you know, with respect,
she's literally complaining because, like, oh, I couldn't get on with my day once.
Is 20. I'm more than twice her age. You know, I've got kids, I've got a job,
You don't
I've got
care
an
about your
elderly
kids.
mother. We have to get on with our lives. Most people feel they're doing their bit. They are doing the recycling. They're trying. I can't afford an electric car. I can't afford a heat pump. Most people can't afford that. The people that the campaigners should be focusing on is the government, not on ordinary people. But it's about ego. There's no doubt that we've had a winter without
the only way
any
she understands it.
protest. But as soon as the sun comes out, oh, it's eco-festival time. And it is a festival. It's a big jamboree. It's let's get on social media. Let's sit down with a placard. Let's advertise to my friends what a great person I am. While the rest, ordinary people who have to go to work, can't get to work.
What's your response?
I just can't believe that that's what you're saying. The United Nations are telling us if we get to 1.7 degrees of warming, half of the population will be exposed to climate conditions that are unlivable,
And that's what you're here to talk about. But I suppose the point isn't about saying the facts over and over again. It's about the actual protest and about
Exactly.
The point isn't about saying the facts over and over again. It's about the actual protest. Exactly. So it's not about the facts. It's about the protest of our ignoring the facts. So we all agree that we're going to die, but we should just be quiet about it.
Disruption and I suppose what for some people, I suppose it is the disconnect between understanding what you think you're achieving by creating disruption to ordinary people versus those big, very important issues that we're all aware of, but clearly you are very passionate about. How do you think it affects the speeding up of those policies that you want? What is the connection between the two?
You're saying that you're aware of this, but I don't think that you are aware. I don't think you are aware, and I don't think the government and the media are doing their duty to show how serious this is.
But you know better than we do.
We're trying to uphold the science. The science is being ignored. The academics are being ignored.
Is it ignored? But we're not allowed to get diesel cars after 2020.
We live in a democracy, and it's not the right of one small group of people to tell everybody else how to live. Go through the democratic process. Talk to your MP, get a government elected who is doing what you want them to do. Don't just simply think, well, we can change everything.
I have to say, Larry, if that was going to work, it would have worked by now. And I think that there is a point to say.
They have to win hearts and minds, and they're not winning
Well, you talk about...
No, but you can't win hearts and minds from psychos, right? Like, you can't change the mind of a psychopath, right? This is what we're looking at. We're looking at someone who is saying we should destroy the species, we should destroy the civilization, we should destroy humanity, fuck my children. I just use them as a shield, like I did previously, right? I just use them as a moral shield, and I hold them up so that I can say, like, oh yes, I care about my children, I'm actively abandoning and arguing in favor of the abandonment of, right? Like, so you can't change their minds. They're psychopaths.
Democracy. Let's talk about hypocrisy. Now, this is a very typical message, okay, that we've had this morning. This is Jam on Twitter, speaking for many, many people. Everything these Stop Oil protesters wear...
Look how hard he's trying to demoralize her, right? Look at how hard he's working to be like, public opinion is against you.
...or buy or eat was delivered or manufactured using oil. And that includes the glue that they use to stick themselves to the road with. What they're saying is that your protests are, by definition, massively imperfect. I mean, the clothes that you're wearing, to some extent, owe their existence to oil because they were taken in a car or a truck.
Look at this smug psycho. Like, look at this smug asshole. Being like, because we've used oil in the past, we must continue using oil. right? Like literally a logical fallacy right in front of your face. Just like a smug moron who's abandoning his own children because he's been told to. This is exactly like Don't Look Up. Like, these people do not care about us. That rebellion is necessary.
Or a van to a shop, you know, there are so many ways that oil impacts on your life as a protester, but you don't acknowledge that.
We're talking about crop failure by 2030. We're talking about people in this country right now in fuel poverty because of the prices of oil, and you're talking about the clothes that I'm wearing.
No, listen.
But this is so serious.
Yeah, I'm glad that she's pointing out how childish and pedantic he's being, because he is. And this, how I'm talking right now, this is how we have to begin talking to these psychopaths, because they've detached from reality completely. We have to begin calling them children. We have to begin calling them stupid. We have to begin saying to their face that they are betraying their children. These are the words that we need to use. We must begin doing it because they are psychos. They've detached from reality completely. We can't change their minds. All we can do is show the rest of the populace how psychopathic they've become. That's all we can do. Like, we are not trying to change that woman's mind. We are not trying to change this man's mind. They can't be changed. They're detached from reality. They've gone psychopathic. We have to speak to them and convince the rest of the populace that these people are psychopaths. That's what needs to happen now. Because full rebellion is what we are talking about. That is what we are talking about now. Like, full-scale, high-level rebellion. And as we do it, these are the people, the psychopaths, who are going to speak to us about it.
Fair up to now,
Listen
you've
to
answered
them.
questions, but that's a complete avoidance of the question. What about the accusation of hypocrisy, that actually you owe your lifestyle just as much to oil as the rest of us?
If we want to talk about hypocrisy, look at the government that has pledged for net zero
Still
by
not
20...
answering the
But they
question.
pledged for net zero...
Still answering the question. Still answering the question. If something bad happened to that guy, I would go, and whoever did it to him, I would celebrate. I'd call them a hero.
by 2050, and now they're looking at opening 42 new oil
What about
fields,
the allegations
which will
of
be
hypocrisy?
releasing fossil fuels
What
into
about
the
allegations
2050s.
of
Who cares,
That
you
is a
dumb
death
fuck?
sentence
What about
for my
allegations
of
generation
hypocrisy?
and for your
What a-
children.
Are
What
you
a
gonna answer that
child.
question, or would you rather not?
How can we be talking about individual scale when we're asking the government to change so we as individuals no longer have to
Do you
be
accept
reliant
there are
on
levels of
fossil fuels?
Is
hypocrisy
there
in your
any
behaviour?
proof that any of the disruption you have caused has changed government policy? I would say no. All it has done is the government has tried to ban protests. It's been completely counterproductive. In the meantime, the collateral damage to ordinary people has been
Psychos
huge.
like
We've
this
been
are
through
why
such
we
a
need
trauma
to
the last 2
protest
years. I think
en
it's best to
masse.
read the
These
room
people
here.
have gone
the whole nation's been through
full-scale
this terrible
psychotic.
trauma. A lot of people have lost their jobs, have lost their businesses, have lost
Like,
their
this is
homes.
mask
And yet
off,
now, just when we
guys.
think we're about to climb
Like, this
out
is
this terrible
mask
trauma,
off
now it's like, can I get
ecofascism,
petrol
what
to go
we're
and see
looking at here.
my 90-year-old mother? I mean, that's why people are so angry about what you're doing, because it's selfish, it's narcissistic,
It's selfish, it's narcissistic. Like, this is full blown. Like, full blown. We are looking at eco-fascism. We are looking at like these are the types of people, right? Like, these are the types of people who are going to come into government, right? Yeah. Like, begin organizing. Show them this. Show them this. Like, we are talking about full-scale rebellion here. What have I been saying this whole time? We must surround the halls of power. These people have, it's mask off, put on the Führer hat, Sig Heil, guys. We're here. It's now. There they are. They're arguing for the destruction of the species and saying to the people who are fighting for their lives and fighting for the lives of their children and their futures that they're selfish and narcissistic. This is enormous gaslighting. This is demonic. These people, in my view, for the disinformation campaigns that they're putting in the society, should be incarcerated at bare minimum for what they're doing to us. This is getting extremely serious, and they are literally going to gaslight us to the grave. That's literally what's going on. Organize your friends, organize your families, organize protests, organize walkouts. We don't have an alternative. These are the psychopaths we're dealing with.
Ego-driven, and it doesn't change government policy.
How do the police treat you on these demonstrations? How have you found their behaviour towards you?
I mean, it's not really a pleasant experience, but I think that's a price worth paying when we're looking at the future. And I do apologise for disruption
But do they
that
arrest
is going on. I don't want to be causing disruption to people, but I genuinely feel like we have no other choice. We have done petitions. You know, there's a man on hunger strike outside Parliament. He's been there for 29 days, and he's been ignored by our government. That is peaceful
Could you have been
protest, and we've
protesting
tried.
Downing Street or Parliament rather than ordinary?
But we have tried that. We've sent a letter to the government asking for a conversation. There's someone on hunger strike, like I said. We've done marches, we've sat outside, we've tried to engage, and it doesn't work. And this is so serious. And I ask you, please, to talk about the people of this country deserve to know how serious the future is going to be. And this is minimal disruption for what is coming.
You were arrested, obviously, but released without charge. Can I just very quickly ask you, how long do you protest for before the police eventually arrest you? How long do you sit there
It's
for?
just, it depends the tactics that people use, if they're locked on or...
But it can be hours, can't it?
Oh, yeah.
And for those who are planning to get away over the Easter holidays, could they expect more disruption, do you think?
I think the main message is that the government can stop this. I think people will continue to disrupt and cause action because they are desperate here. The government could stop this if they commit to no new oil projects.
Well, the message from, we have to say, the message from four courts this morning is that things are getting back to normal.
Yes.
There is absolutely no...
Unhinged. Completely unhinged. Like, that was like, that was from the movie Don't Look Up. Like, that was from the movie Don't Look Up. Share this with your friends. Share this with your family. Spread this around. Like, this one is mask off, man. Like, I haven't seen anything more mask off than this. Literally. Like, fighting for your future is selfishness. Fighting for your future is... oh, my lawn, my Easter holiday has been disrupted by climate collapse. Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, we are talking, and what you just witnessed here, right? What you just witnessed in the figure of this person right here, this woman here, right? Like, that's umbrage right there. Like, that's umbrage. Like, if you need a Harry Potter analogy, right? Like, big demon energy, big evil energy right here, right? Like, this, yeah, of course they turned off the comments. Yeah, of course. No, cowards often do that, right? Like, they can't actually allow information to be spread meaningfully, right? They can't actually allow the truth to come out and for people to actually comment on it seriously, right? Like, we are facing like a dark timeline, and things like this, people like this, are going to become louder and more prominent and more forceful and more central in the conversation. And if we are not prepared to call them the psychopaths that they are, like, this woman does not care about her children. She just uses them as a political prop. That's all. Right? I know, it seems like it's from a movie, right? It seems like it's from Don't Look Up. It seems like it's just a scene in a movie. I mean, certainly the loudest. In my view, my biggest complaint of the left, such that it exists, is that we're cowardly. Like, it's just cowardice, basically. Like, this young lady here was doing her best to be civil, but, like, she doesn't need to be civil. These people are psychopaths, right? They're not gonna have their minds changed, right? That they're embarrassing psychopaths who are abandoning their children and are telling us we should accept that. Fuck you. It's very, very simple, right? Like, we should not be tolerating these people. They should be considered intolerable. And, like, as it gets worse, all of the bad things that happen to people like this Right here? Great. Good. Perfect. Oh, her car suddenly exploded. Oh, well. What are you going to do? Cars explode sometimes. Right? Oh, her house burnt down. Oh, yeah, okay. That happens sometimes, you know. Like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, it's time to respond to these people. Right? It's time to respond to these people. And respond to them in the only language they respect. Like, we're talking about full-blown Nazi-level fascists. Like, these people are worse than the Nazis. Right? Because even the Nazis weren't trying to destroy the entire species. Even the Nazis weren't trying to destroy the entire culture and civilization. Right? Like, this woman is worse than a Nazi. Like, Priti Patel. That's her name. Right? Like, straight up. Worse than a Nazi. And anybody who's going along with this shit, like, our kids are going to spit at us. Like, I don't know how to articulate this properly, right? Like, the generation that's coming up are literally going to pee on us while we are in the corner and laugh at us. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, women like this are going to go down as, like, demonic devils. Like, they're not going to be looked at with respect and decency. Like, the generation that comes after Gen Z, right? Like, the generation that, like, we might as well call them what? Like, the apocalypse? The apocalypsers? I don't know what name we should give them. But, like, these people are going to look at women like this and be like, oh, wow, you actually let a demon talk in public? Why'd you let that demon talk? Like... And it, because the culture is going to get very brutal. Like, it's going to get very brutal very fast. Right? Like, I can already see it. Like, the fascists feel more empowered than they ever have. Once Donald Trump gets reelected, right? Once Donald Trump gets reelected, they're going to absolutely, like... We're going to see full-blown Nazi rallies. We're going to see it's going to be full-blown, right? And the liberals among us are going to be like, well, it's just a little Nazism. Who hasn't done a little Nazi role play, right? Like, it's going to get very bad. Like, and we're not doing anything to prevent it. Like, we're doing a lot of performative action. Her comment that the government is considering banning protests because of the climate protesters. They want to ban protests, but not the reason that is being put forward. I mean, yeah, but not for the reason that they're being put. Of course they want to ban protests. Go back. What did she say, dude? Just like I've linked the video. You can look the video. Here, I'll link it again. Like, we what are we supposed to say anymore? Like, what are we supposed to say anymore? Like, these people are murdering our children, and we're just, like, tolerating them. Like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about, like, look at the panel discussion. Like, a literal neo-Nazi level fascist, right? A pedantic, clearly bought news guy. This woman here looked like she was a bit sympathetic, but just like weak, completely, right? Like, these people are psychos, man. Like, I don't like, what do we need to do? Like, what do we need to do? What do you need to see? What needs to be seen? Like, what do we need to talk about? Who do we need to talk to? Right? Well, because there's nobody to talk to. Like, we've done the talking. Like, we've done the talking. Sweden and Finland make moves to join NATO. I'd be surprised, John Smith, honestly. I've seen the rumblings of this. I'd be pretty surprised if that actually happened, though. Like, seems, there's always a grumbling and a rumbling towards this, but we'll see if anything manifests. It's like, and in my opinion, like, the United States does a lot of things to try to foment war because we're a barbaric culture that's disconnected from reality. right? Russian forces appear to move military equipment to Finland border in video. Oh yeah, let's go World War III. Let's kick it off, right? I mean, the Russians have to. Like, let's take a look at the map, right? Like we're a desperately psychotic culture. Like we're so barbaric. So like, it's an enormous border that you're looking at, right? That they share, right? Can't just ignore it, right? Like if Finland wants to be suicidal and go along with this kind of NATO idea, like the thing that's shocking to me the most about this is like if Finland and Sweden turned to NATO and said, "Hey, can we join your defensive military alliance?" Like NATO should say no, right? Like we're starting to get documents coming out of from Ukraine saying that the United States and NATO never had any intention of allowing Ukraine to actually join NATO, right? Because it's a huge problem for them. They like NATO, like think about it from a defensive position, right? NATO wants there to be neutral nations between Russia and NATO. If NATO's not going to allow Russia to join NATO the way that Russia wanted to join NATO, right? Like Russia wanted to join NATO, Putin wanted to join NATO, and they rejected him, right? Why? Can you give me one reason for why they would have done that? Right? What's the only reason that they would have actually rejected Russia for? Right? It's so that they can destroy it. And they're not interested in having Russia be part of NATO because they want to destroy it. And any defensive alliance that exists between these nations, like you absolutely want there to be neutral territories between your primary antagonist, right, and your territory. Like, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. Like, after World War II, we could have lived in a world like where Roosevelt was actually talking about buddying up with Russia, right? He was explicit, and so was his vice president. He like literally runs on it. Kosovo, Bosnia, call for NATO membership as war rages. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's going to happen, right? That's an inevitability. I don't really like. It's just talk, right? And again, like it's funny that Kosovo would do it, given the history that NATO has with Kosovo and Bosnia. And a lot of this is just coming from a place of fear. Okay, come on, John. Bosnia. You know where Bosnia is, dude. Where's Bosnia? John, I was right about Kosovo. I went right to it. Come on. Bosnia. Oh, boo. Boo. I was looking right at it, but the thing was, it wasn't. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if Kosovo and Bosnia were to join NATO, that's not that big a deal. Honestly, they're very small nations. Like they don't have a whole thing. I know, big oof, John. I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. I was looking right at it, and I was like, it's in here, isn't it? It's like right in here. Just total fucking bullshit. Total fucking bullshit. No, if Bosnia and Kosovo were to join NATO, I don't think that's like a big deal. Like you look at the map, right? Like, and your major NATO partners are like Germany, France, Spain, Italy, right? Like this is like the beating heart of NATO in Europe. And so for these ancillary nations here, like your Poland, like all of these, right? All of these, like yeah, I'm more or less of the opinion that they should be part of NATO. Right? That if NATO was actually like a defensive alliance that was actually interested in being like just we are a defensive alliance, that's what we are here for, and that also gives us internal security on kind of a federated level, right? Like, yes, we would like alliances between places like Germany, France, Spain, England, right? Like Poland, Chechnya, Austria, Italy, given their history of like overt crazed barbarism, right? Like, it would be really great if these nations could just like buddy up and be like, okay, we're gonna not go to war with one another for a minute, right? Like, this is something I think about all the time. Like, the European nations used to be at war all the time. For God's sakes, there was 100 years war between France and England, right? Like, these are barbarian nations. They are constantly in open warfare with one another, right? And then they industrialized it, had an industrial war amongst each other, and then liked it so much that they did it again. Like, these are barbarian cultures. And we absolutely want them to have some kind of agreement to be like, let's not kill each other, right? Let's actually like try to live in peace with it and discuss things, right? And so if like Kosovo and Bosnia want to join NATO, that's completely inoffensive, right? Where it becomes scary for the world powers, Russia, is when they start to encroach on the border. So like Finland, Sweden, Ukraine, like these places here, there's the same story in Georgia, right? Like, leave off. And it's also like completely against the interests of NATO. Like, NATO doesn't want to do anything to if it's a defensive alliance, well, you know what the greatest defense of all would be? Making sure that you have border security, making sure that you're not in conflict directly with an antagonizer or some kind of power, right? So like Finland and Sweden, like even talking about it, I think it's fucking dumb, like just dumb, like, and NATO is gonna accept it, right? Like, no, like it's bad enough that like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are part of NATO. This has been considered tolerable because Russia owns this parcel of land right here. And so if NATO was to start doing anything here, well, they could just cut it off through Belarus, right? Like it would actually be easy to gain control of this territory and cut off any troops or anything from here. Like, I was talking with somebody today, like there's this narrative going about that this... greetings. So I just became a Canadian citizen, so now I can vote. Well, Lonnie, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. You're a fan of this channel, and so you being a Canadian citizen means that the Canadian Empire gets slightly better. Yeah, honestly, like when I take a look at the French elections. Varying degrees of neoliberal. Like I don't see anybody really I don't see anything meaningful here. Like I pay very brief attention to it, and I'm just kind of like pretty unimpressed across the board. Like it's like I say, Vince, like these are barbarian nations, right? Like France is the one that's done the best in terms of actually beautifying its society, right? It's had periods of time where it like actually goes through and like creates stuff and makes things, right? Like, yeah, Trump versus Clinton, yeah. Like that's kind of how I look at it. I'm just like, it's not going to be it's just not going to be, well, because look, like communists have been co-opted, dude. Like there's no mystery to this. Like communist parties get infected by intelligence agencies who actively seek to destroy them and take them over. Like there's no mystery, right? Like I don't need to like see a document to know that that's what's happening. Like, of course they sold out. That's if real communists don't have anywhere to gather. And if any time they do gather, they get co-opted by CIA agents who blow the thing apart, like, what are they supposed to do? Like, just make sure, just scorched earth it. Just scorch earth them. Yeah, The majority of the world's leaders are a bunch of privileged elite brats who have never had to endure any real life suffering in their lives, rattling ceremonial sabers. Yeah, I mean, you take a look at Trudeau. Like, Trudeau's never, he has actually worked. Like, this is the thing that's interesting about Trudeau. He's actually worked as a school teacher, right? Like, he's a drama teacher. Like, he actually did that, right? Which puts him ahead of somebody like Pierre Poilievre, who's never worked a job in his life, right? And yet is trying to convince us that he's like for the working class, who he doesn't know, he's never met, he doesn't know any of these guys. Like, and people turn around and vote for them. Yeah, 2027, at least the left can rebuild, but CIA M16 can continue their co-opting. Yeah, like that's what they do. Like, that's what they do. Like the budget of the CIA and CSIS and M16 and all these guys is so ridiculous that they you're right. What was it? Scientist Rebellion? Is that what it was? Scientist Rebellion. Goes the channel.
Aber du glaubst, dass wir ewig wachsen können? Dass Wirtschaftswachstum ewig sein kann?
Ja. Glaube ich schon.
Ja,
Also die grüne Wende,
Ja, aber
die grüne
Growth-
Wende ist ein Wachstumsprogramm.
Is there something specific I'm supposed to be looking at? I mean, this seems cool. Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs. They're like, I don't know what they're drawing. This looks. This is German, isn't it? Stop ecocide, protect life. Yeah. Here we go. Oh yeah.
Bisher ist die Entkopplung quasi von Ressourcenverbrauch und
Here,
Wirtschaftswachstum.
up until now, decoupling material and resource use from economic growth is just a claim made by economists.
Ja.
Oh, hey, here's a guy actually
Das
like
wird ja bisher noch nicht
using
belegt.
economics and understanding how economics actually
Gesagt,
works.
wir versuchen das, wir wollen das.
Naja gut, natürlich ist es so, dass man heute Autos hat, die weniger Sprit verbrauchen als früher.
Dafür haben wir mehr Autos.
Like, I'm glad to see that there's somebody doing something. Like, it's going to get so much worse. Like, I don't know. Yeah, good. Yeah, the revolution will not be televised, as they say.
Es sind zwar Schritte im Laufen, wie zum
There are
Beispiel
measures
die
being taken, for
erneuerbaren
example,
Energien,
expanding renewable energies.
aber alle Lösungen, die
But all the solutions being discussed focus on technical solutions, products that can be sold, right?
und was eigentlich notwendig
Yeah.
wäre,
What is actually needed is a parallel reduction of economic growth, degrowth. Just stop. What have I been saying? One of the points for green growth is it aims at relative decoupling of resource use. It's great if computers use less energy these days, but it's irrelevant if we have 2 to 3 times more computers.
Genau. Und deshalb reicht das dann nicht.
It's true. It's not, we need a decoupling. Yeah.
Das ist ja,
Da sind wir noch
das
nicht.
steht in den Sternen. Und dann sagst du jetzt hier, ewige Wachstum, ja. Obwohl das gar nicht
And then you say endless growth, even though it's impossible.
Es geht
Yes, it's possible. I think it is. Otherwise, we'd have a problem. We have a problem. Like, imagine I just like these people are actually arguing in front of our faces. Like, they're actually this is what's going to be the best, actually. Like, it is. It's going to be the best because there is going to be like confrontation moments. Like, they're just now beginning, right? Like the video that I showed before. And we're going to start seeing like pretty major confrontation moments where these detached group of religious acolytes who are illiterate morons who learned their craft from people who are actively deceiving them, like so outrageously discredited is economics as a field of study in the United States that they literally had to create another branch of economics to actually teach people economics, and that's called business schools, right? Because they understood that, oh, if these illiterate, moronic losers who don't know the first thing about economics actually attempted to run a business, it would immediately fail. Like, because the principles that we're teaching them is just a rhetoric, so that we can funnel people, like, so that we can confuse the populace into letting us rob them, basically. Which is all trickle down economics is, supply side economics, which of course the liberal government outright said in the budget, that's what we're doing. Supply side economics, baby. That's what we're doing. Right? So, like, literally, like, an admission of... And so we're going to see major confrontations with these illiterate morons who have just been yes men of the apocalypse, with people like me who are going to say to their faces, you guys are fucking losers. Like, total illiterate morons. Your entire life's work is a fraud and a sham. Stop participating. Like that's where we're heading, right? Like, think about, like, when the new atheists confronted the evangelical Christians, right? Well, you're going to see people like that come out of the woodwork, people like Christopher Hitchens, right? Who are actually going to look at these economists who are arguing for the destruction of the species and are going to talk to them this way, like they should be talked to. Like, these embarrassing fucking frauds absolutely need to be put down. Hey, Loaf, how you doing? Justin was mollycoddled by his mother because his father considered him soft. The Trudeau that should have been leader, Michael, was tragically drowned as a result of an avalanche in '98. He was their heir apparent. Let's Science Rebellion, Los Angeles. Is this another channel? I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for here, Famita. Scientist Rebellion, Los Angeles. I spelled it right.
Is Cape Town's water crisis a cautionary tale for the rest of us?
From PBS.
Joining me from Los Angeles to discuss the global.
I mean, this is from back in 2008, 18.
Water scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Thanks for joining us. So, is Cape Town a harbinger of things to come?
I think Cape Town is really a wake-up call for other cities around the world. Again, climate change,
Bumble, how you doing, bud?
Extremes of flooding and drought, population growth, income inequality. These are all factors that we have to include in our water resources management. And if we don't, then the threats, the potential for day zeros around the world is really heightened.
Let's bring this a little closer to home. There's a drought situation in California, and you're very familiar with this. You've helped create this map and what's happening here. And the increasing sort of red and dark brown areas are areas of drought. And you can see this progressing year after year after year after year. What led to the intensity of this drought that California suffered?
Well, what we're seeing in that video is really a combination of a lack of rainfall, part of which may be the climate change driven.
What happened
but
yesterday?
What's really driving that animation is overexploitation of groundwater. And this is a problem that we've had in California for over a century. We use the water to fuel our agricultural sector, which is quite productive, but we've been using it without any regulation, any significant regulation until now. So only recently in 2014 did California pass the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act to try to slow the depletion of groundwater, but still that will take a couple of decades to fully implement.
And what about other cities in areas where...
my absolute favorite. Spiraling housing prices are an intergenerational injustice, says Canada's Deputy Prime Minister. If only she was in power for 6 years, right? Like, if only she had been in the government at the highest possible levels of government to be in order to do something, right? Like, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about, like, these performative bullshit, like, absolutely just saying shit, right? Like, oh, it's an intergenerational injustice. Vote liberal. Like, do something. Like, do something about it, right? Don't pretend to do something about it. Just do something. Like, Liberal government announced it implemented 2-year ban on foreign house purchases. Like, oh no, what a wank. It's also promised to invest $10 billion in housing and said it will accelerate the pace in which new houses are built to be bought by the investor class. What do you think's gonna fucking happen? Like, that's all this is. It's just a total fucking wank. USA tax rates in 1960. If you made $200K in 1960, the tax rate was 91%. Right? Like, yeah, that'll lower her property value. That's exactly the problem, right? Is that the politicians own these properties too. And if we actually did something... Out of curiosity, why are you playing videos now when you said to me recently you were scared to do it because of because I'm fucking mad, Eric. That's all. I'm fucking mad. Like, I don't care if today's video gets demonetized. Like, fuck this. Like, I'm mad. Fuck this. Like, fuck this. So now's the time. If you want me to play a video, tell me. Because, like, I'm playing whatever. Because I'm fucking mad. I'm mad. Like, I'm mad that there are literally these psycho bitches. Like, this woman here. Like, a literal demon. She might as well have horns. She might as well have fucking fangs coming out of her fucking mouth. Her skin might as well be red. Like, fucking cloven hooves. Like, just like a literal, alive demon. Right? Walking this plane of... And, like, her face just says it all. Just look at her. Like, just look at her. Like... What's to stop a local shell from... Exactly, Bumble. No, but that's exactly it. Right? Like, what's the fucking name of it? The Beaverton. The Beaverton outright was just like, liberals to ban purchasing of homes by companies who can't be bothered to put together a shell company. Right? Here we go. Like, for fuck's sake. Like, I'm so fucking pissed off, guys. Like, I'm so pissed off today. Like, are we seriously gonna get wiped out because we're ruled by losers? Like, just total fucking losers? Like, that's really what it is. Like, we're gonna go out because of these fucking losers.
Which, out of all the banks in the world, the one that has done the most to fund fossil fuel projects. This latest IPCC report made it very clear that current and planned fossil fuel infrastructure will take us significantly beyond 2 times.
What are you going to school for, Loaf?
The best estimate of what we can still emit and have a coin toss chance of staying under 1.5 degrees of global heating.
These banks, these institutions fund everything globally and locally. This is for the Wet'suwet'en in Canada. This is for the Tonga people here.
I'm here because scientists are not being listened to. I'm willing to take a risk for this gorgeous planet, for my sons. And we've been trying to warn you guys for so many decades that we're heading towards a fucking catastrophe. And we've been being ignored. The scientists of the world have been being ignored. And it's gotta stop. We're gonna lose everything. And we're not joking. We're not lying. We're not exaggerating. This is so bad, everyone, that we're willing to take this risk. And more scientists and more people are gonna start joining us. This is for all of the kids of the world, all the young people, all of the future people. This is so much bigger than any of us.
And we are tired of being ignored. We've tried being unbiased. We've tried being silent. We have tried the policy game. We have tried celebrities. We have tried everything.
You know what we should start doing? Like, straight up. Look at the response here. Look at this. Right? Look at all the money. Like, look how much money this is. Responding to protect private property. Absolutely. Like, for real, what I think we should begin doing, like, get bike locks. Go buy some bike locks, right? Like, get some chain and some fucking locks, right? And literally, like, it just start locking doors. Like, just start fucking locking doors. Like, literally go to the doors of the halls of power and start locking them. Like, straight up. Like, it would be cheap. It would be effective. It'd be a big pain in the ass for them. Right? I don't give a fuck. You know what a fire? You know what's a fire hazard? Let's go ask the people of Lytton. Let's go ask the fucking people of Lytton what they think about the fire hazard. Like, this place is a fire hazard. Like, fucking fire hazard. Like, what are we talking about? Like, we have to be revolting. Like, we have to be rebelling. Like, there's no alternative any longer. Like, there is genuinely no alternative. And, like, if we're not actually willing to do very even, like, basic shit, like, just pack it in. Just fucking pack it in. I know, buddy. I know. My dog's over here whining about peanut butter. Meanwhile, Biden to allow more ethanol and gas this summer in bid to lower prices. Well, then do it at night. Like, if that's what you're scared of, do it at night. Like, make them walk into it in the morning. Like this pisses me off. Like, this fucking pisses me off. Like, no wonder we're losing. Like, no wonder we're just gonna be fucking irrelevant soon. No wonder we're gonna get wiped out. Right? Like, this like tiptoeing bullshit. Like, like, oh, there was a protest and it interrupted my Easter. Like, oh, but come on, I wanted to get out to the Easter thing and I got to deal with this fucking protest. Like, for fuck's sake. Like, no wonder nobody pays any attention to us. Like, they don't have to. Right? Like, they literally don't have to. That we're not irrelevant. We're not relevant to the conversation. We don't matter. Right? Because nobody gives a shit. And why should they? Right? We're not a threat. We don't scare them. We're not doing anything that they should care about. Right? To them, we're mainly bothersome. Right? Like, that's all. And how do I know they're mainly bothersome? Because that's what she's saying. Like, that's what they say. That we're just kind of a bother to them. Right? That we're not and they're saying out loud to us that we're not effective. They're saying out loud to us that what we're doing isn't working. Well, neither is talking to them, neither is negotiating with them, neither is any of this stuff. So it's time to do other things. Like, it's time to fucking nut up and fucking do other things. Because nothing we've done so far is working. Like, nothing we're doing is working. They don't care. They don't care. And I'm sick of this shit. Like, I'm sick of people getting like fucking scared off over like fucking fire, health, and safety. Like, get fucked. Get completely fucked. Like, for Christ's sake. Like, the place is gonna burn down. Like, the place is gonna burn the fuck down. Who cares about that, though? That doesn't matter. It's not too late. It's not too late. That's the thing. I don't believe this doomerism shit. I don't believe this, like, inevitability bullshit. I don't buy into it at all. That if we started to play by the rules, yeah, there's going to be shit that happens, for sure. For sure. The earth is more than capable of healing itself. It's more than capable of healing itself. It can do it with extreme proficiency. It's been doing it for millions of years. It literally created us. It literally created the gardens that we respond into. It's literally everything that is happening here is a result of the creative power of the earth itself. And we just completely disrespect it. Like, completely disrespect it. This is why we have an easier time viewing the destruction of the species and the destruction of the planet than we do the destruction of capitalism. Because we're so fucking disrespectful to the earth. Even the people who are rooting on the side of the earth disrespect the earth. No one believes that the earth is going to win this fight. And the earth is going to destroy this fight. Like, we're talking about, like, Godzilla versus Tokyo here. Like, how many times have you watched this movie and Tokyo wins? Right? Tokyo doesn't win. Godzilla fucking wins. Every single fucking time. And the idea that the earth is somehow going to be, like, the earth is going to lose? To what? These fucking dumb monkeys with bombs? Not going to happen. No, the only question we're having is how much damage are we going to take? Like, that's what we're talking about here. Like, how much damage are we going to take? And it's completely self-inflicted. Like, this whole thing is completely self-inflicted so we can drive cars and shit. History shows again and again how nature points out the folly of man. Godzilla. Is that a Blue Oyster cult? That's fun. I actually do think that there is going to be, like, a crazy, like, Kraken moment. Giant squid found. Yeah.
This is a giant squid, measuring in at 12 foot long. If 12 foot or 3.7 meters doesn't sound that giant to you, that's because this squid, named locally as Heck, is still only young.
Right.
It's likely the next time it's spotted, it'll be over 40 foot long, and scientists say they can grow even bigger, up to a whopping 60 foot. That's over 18 meters long.
So, like, we for sure, like, I keep saying this out loud so that when this happens, I can be like, I'm the smartest man in the world. We're gonna see, like, an aircraft carrier, right? Like, an aircraft carrier is gonna be tentacles, like, surrounding it, trying to pull it down into the ocean, right? Like, it's coming, guys. Like, it's coming. Like, as we continue polluting the ocean, like, the eldritch horrors that exist beneath the ocean waves that we don't even attempt to discover or find, right? Like, these things are going to come to the surface. And when they surface, they're going to be angry. They're going to be angry. I personally welcome our alien squid overlords. Yeah. The coming summer, spring will be even worse in environmental collapse. Yeah, absolutely. We're willing to fly people in from a war zone while our own people are being displaced. Yeah. Like, it's, we're very, very backward. Like, we're very backward. I had a link that spoke to that. Oh well, I must have accidentally closed it. Lovecraft wrote fact, not fiction. I think this guy was just scared of what was under the ocean. I have a friend who's like this. He's just like scared of the ocean. And I'm like, I'm not. Like, I'm not scared of it at all. Like, there's creepy shit under there, don't get me wrong. Like, there's some creepy stuff going on. You wanna come out, buddy? Yeah. I sing the song of my people. The song of the protesting pug. Like, somebody was asking earlier what my opinion on the French elections are. History repeats itself. The ruling class has already won. Like, 5 years have passed, yet French voters seem to have remained politically stuck in this 5-year period. The results of the presidential elections held in France are, in fact, worryingly similar to those of April 2017. As nothing happened in the meantime. The incumbent president, Macron, will be the big favorite. The leader of blah, 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 blah. It's just so, like, who gives a fuck? Like, it's so obviously just, like, Subnautica, yeah. Good old Subnautica. I've been, like, really deep on Elden Ring. I'm trying so hard to finish the game because I'm playing as a mage, and I wish I hadn't. I wish I wasn't playing as a mage. I wish I was playing as something else. Because, like, I'm not going to turn this into a fucking Elden Ring conversation. Just, like, the magic system in Elden Ring is not good. If you ever pick up Elden Ring, don't worry about magic. The magic system's not good. Like, Elden Ring itself is like an S tier level game, like A+ for sure. But the magic system is like C. It's like very, very low, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. I feel like I'm like depleted now. Like, I feel like I'm so. Oh yeah. Canada is happy to provide Ukraine with weapons, but not debt relief, by Eve Angler. Although Ukraine is hobbled by the debt it owes to international creditors, Canada's support for the country does not include any debt relief. It does, however, include guns and even more loans. Ukraine owes the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, European Union, Canada, and other international creditors around $125 billion. Almost 80% of its GDP. Amidst an outpouring of support for Ukraine, no Western leader has called for international debt forgiveness. Since the beginning of Russia's invasion, Ukraine has paid international creditors hundreds of millions, and it's supposed to pay billions of dollars more in debt charges this year. Between January and March, Ottawa has transferred at least $83.8 million worth of military aid to Ukraine. In addition to these military supplies, new loans are in the offing. I know, buddy. I know. What's it? Oh, you got plenty of peanut butter in here, dude. What's this? Got a peanut butter break. Peanut butter break. Here you go, buddy. In the face of Ukraine's hardships and in spite of the acclaim to which pro-Ukrainian gestures are currently met, there has been virtually no discussion of debt relief for Ukraine. Canada and other powerful debt holders appear to support Ukraine fighting Russia. It's less clear that they care about Ukraine's economy, democracy, or sovereignty. They don't. Like, they don't. Ottawa and Ukrainian market reforms. Indebtedness has greatly influenced the last 30 years of Ukrainian independence. The country has repeatedly borrowed from the IMF to stave off default. This borrowing has given the IMF and elite policymakers in Canada and other creditor countries significant leverage to push for neoliberal reforms. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine took on a sixth of the USSR's $68 billion debt. Ottawa pressed Kiev to accede to an agreement on Soviet-era debt, making service to the debt a condition to credit access. Canadian assistance was dependent on the privatization of public property and liberalization of the economy. In 1994, Foreign Affairs Minister Andrei Hullet declared, "Our assistance to Ukraine can only be effective if the Ukrainian government takes the necessary steps to put in place the framework in which a market economy can develop." I got to point out, doesn't this sound familiar? An indebted nation swings hard to the right, and a bunch of Nazis come up from it and turn and fight Russia. Sounds familiar to me. During this period, Ottawa sponsored various initiatives to promote neoliberal reforms, including the Ukraine Reform Conference, the Canada-Ukraine Trade and Investment Support Project, the Canada-Ukraine Intergovernmental Economic Commission, and the Canada-Ukraine Business Initiative and Canada-Ukraine Legislative Cooperation Project. In the mid-1990s, Ottawa financed an initiative to enable the privatization of Ukrainian agricultural land, which had all been publicly owned. As a 1996 Vancouver Sun article reported, since the demise of the Soviet Union, Canada has committed more than $120 million in technical aid to help Ukraine make the complex transition to a market economy. In October 1994, several months after Leonid Kuchma became the country's second president, Canada hosted a special G7 conference to promote economic reform in Ukraine. Prior to the gathering, the Toronto Star reported, Canada will pledge up to $20 million in aid to help Ukraine transform its economy to a Western-style market system. As Ukraine's largest investor, the Star reported, Canada also pushed the IMF to make its first ever loan to the country. In the years after the conference, Ukraine sold off thousands of state enterprises. Well-connected individuals often acquired these properties for a pittance, which gave rise to a class of powerful oligarchs whose interests were antithetical to democracy. Western investors. During the 1998 financial crisis which devastated Russia and Ukraine, Ottawa pressed the IMF to expand financing to Ukraine. Because the country had become far more vulnerable to foreign shocks after liberalizing its economy, Ottawa feared that the neoliberal reforms would be halted or even reversed. In 1999, the Globe and Mail reported Prime Minister Jean Chrétien personally lobbied for a multi-billion-dollar loan for Ukraine from the International Monetary Fund when it was hit by economic crisis last year. Chrétien urged the Ukrainian leadership to continue with the unpopular economic reforms. You have committed yourself to building that economic strength, navigating the difficult passage from a command economy to a market economy, he told Ukrainian leaders. In spite of the difficulties, I urge you to stay the course. According to an estimate published in the Globe and Mail in 2001, Ukraine's GDP contracted by as much as 2/3 in the first 8 years after independence. Through the 2000s, Ottawa continued to push for policies that favored capital and foreign interests. The 2008 global economic crisis delivered a sharp blow to Ukraine, forcing the country to again turn to the IMF for a bailout. In 2009, as reported by the Ottawa Citizen, Canada and Ukraine launched free trade negotiations, which quickly bogged down after pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych came to power in 2010. In 2014, the article continues, negotiations were quietly resurrected after Yanukovych was ousted. Yanukovych's ouster was a result of the revolt that Canada promoted. I mean, it was a coup. I don't know what to tell you. Why are we calling it a revolt? I don't know why we're pussyfooting around it. Much of Western Ukraine was angry with Yanukovych after he backed away from the European Union Ukraine Association Agreement. However, part of the reason for his government's rejection of the accord was because of Brussels' refusal to help with the terms of an agreement with the IMF. The IMF's loan renewal demanded extremely harsh conditions, including the elimination of energy subsidies and other government supports. After Yanukovych's unconstitutional removal, just call it a coup. I don't know. Anyway, Ottawa immediately announced $220 million in funding to shore up the new Ukrainian government, the coup government. However, Foreign Minister John Baird refused to release the assistance until IMF officials were granted greater control over Ukrainian economic policy. As Baird put it, the IMF is going to want to negotiate some of the strictest conditions. $20 million of the money was earmarked to supply Ukraine with the expert guidance it needs to manage this important economic transition. In the summer of 2015, then Canadian PM Stephen Harper met with Yanukovych's successor, Arseniy Yatsenyuk. Shortly thereafter, the new Ukrainian Prime Minister called for Canadian investors to buy Ukrainian government enterprises. I don't want Ukrainian tycoons to buy these state-owned enterprises, he told the Globe and Mail. We would be happy to see Canadian folks buying Ukrainian assets and bringing into Ukrainian good corporate governance, new investments, and new jobs. So literally, they're just like selling Ukraine, right? 3 years later, Stepan Kubiv, Ukraine's Minister of Economic Development and Trade, writing in Canada's Financial Post, declared that our trade strategy is combined with an ambitious economic reform program to make Ukraine more attractive to Western investment. Basically, just sell Ukraine to the highest bidder. Since 2014, we have achieved more reforms than at any time since independence. We have deregulated sectors of the economy, streamlined business regulations, and undertaken privatization of state-owned enterprises. Reforms are underway to improve creditors' rights and intellectual property rights. Sounds like the destruction of the civil society to me. Just straight up like a return to barbarism. Free guns with purchase of debt. Since the 2014 coup, hey, they did it. They did it. Yeah, they did it. Woo, I'm glad that somebody's calling it a coup because it was a fucking coup. The IMF, World Bank, and European Investment Bank have plowed more than $10 billion into Ukraine. In 2020, the IMF celebrated improvements in the country's fiscal situation, which it said were achieved mainly through a reduction in the real value of wages and social benefits. 3 decades of neoliberal reforms have been devastating for Ukraine. Inequality has grown substantially. Prior to the upheaval in 2014, Ukraine's GDP was actually smaller than when it declared independence in 1991. Before Russia's recent invasion, Ukraine's GDP was about 20% below its Soviet-era level. Ukraine's GDP per capita is less than half of Russia's and a fifth of Poland's. Immiseration has made the country fertile terrain for far-right demagoguery. This year, Ukrainian GDP is down by 16% in the first quarter and expected to drop by up to 40%. It's hard to imagine that the country will be able to fully service its international debt. Without substantial debt forgiveness, creditors will gain even greater leverage over the country's economy and politics. To preempt further economic deprivations, Ukrainian civil society organizations recently launched a petition calling for debt cancellation. Oh, a petition, that'll do it. But it has largely been ignored in the West. Oh, big fucking shock. In last week's budget, the federal government allocated a $1 billion loan to Ukraine. The funds will be channeled through the newly created IMF multi-donor administered account for Ukraine. The budget also earmarked $500 million in new funding for arms. Since February 27th, Canada has announced 3 new weapons donations, which include 4,500 M72 rocket launchers, 7,500 hand grenades, 100 Carl Gustav M2 anti-tank weapons, and 2,000 rounds of ammunition. The weapons are donations, but the bulk of Canada's other assistance to Ukraine is in the form of loans. When the interests of international debt holders and ordinary Ukrainians clash, it appears that the losers continue to be workers, pensioners, and their families. Wealthy capitalist countries are eager to provide weapons to enable continued fighting, but are silent on requests for debt relief. The fact that weapons are acceptable aid, but not the concrete relief from suffering that debt forgiveness could provide, tells us something fundamental about the capitalist system. Like, we don't care about Ukraine. Like, we don't care about Ukraine at all. Like, we are plunderers. Like, that's what we're doing here, right? We're just outright, we're just outright pilfering, frankly. Like, just cutting it up and selling it off to the highest bidder. Yep, Gates must want all those nice vast wheat fields or something. Yeah, that's the strategy. Gun make money, so does debt. Go get that bag, Canada, yeah. I'll stick with RuneScape. I can't believe that RuneScape is still around, dude. Like, I can't believe it. Recently, I've started to think, how well did neoliberalism reform help those countries, which we all know it only makes the poor poorer and the rich richer. Yeah, that's the point, though. Private news is more controlled than state news. I think that's probably true, actually. Like, state news at least has, like... I look at something like CBC, right? And there are definitely clear examples of, like, the liberals going to the CBC and saying, publish this, right? But the CBC also publishes other things. And a lot of stuff that gets published from an organization like the CBC is just information that the government has access to, like StatsCan information, stuff like that, right? That it maybe doesn't have a commentary on it, but it's still publishing it, right? And so the CBC does other things and has a mandate to actually publish, the results of government studies, the results of studies from the University of Toronto, from the University of Calgary, this sort of stuff, right? Whereas, like, something like Global News, right? Like, they have no such mandate. That their argument for existing is literally like, well, we're in the marketplace of ideas and we put forward, but like, all you have to do is just omit facts and omit reality, and you can make whatever claim you like, right? Which is what we're seeing. Yeah, Westoid Media was calling Zelensky's regime corrupt prior to February 24th. Yeah, of course. How am I not surprised that neoliberalism is a failure for the working class? But we need more of it, according to liberals. Always, always. Yeah, just keep extracting, just theft, and we keep voting for it. So why shouldn't they? Like, that's the big thing, right? That's the big turnaround, right? Is like we keep supporting it, like we keep voting for it. We keep looking and saying, yeah, this is fine, right? And just keep going along with it, right? And we refuse to acknowledge that, like, yeah, the system isn't giving us alternatives because the system has been corrupted. Like, we don't live in a legitimate democracy, that the democracy has been bought. If we were to actually put forward a alternative, they would destroy us, right? Like, for God's sakes, like, you think Justin Trudeau declaring the Emergency Act on protesters at a bridge, like, that's where this guy's willing to go. That's where these people are willing to take us. Like, it's always a bad idea to ally yourself with the West because we are just going to subject people to neoliberalism. Yeah? Yeah, absolutely, Eric. Here you go, bud. This is something that the rest of the world is starting to put together, by the way. Right? Like, don't talk to these guys. Like, don't actually take them seriously. Do not tie your wagon to their star. Don't do it. Right? It's a hard lesson that Russia's had to learn. Right? That, like, Russia wanted to be part of the West. Like, it really did. Like, this is like the Gorbachev-Yeltsin years, right? Like, the dismantlement of the USSR is done with this idea that we're going to join the prosperity of the United States. Because, of course, like, Yeltsin and Gorbachev are idiots and losers who like, don't understand that the prosperity that the United States is experiencing is like a post-World War II prosperity. Like, these guys literally looked at a society that didn't have a single bomb drop on its like there wasn't a single invading soldier. Nobody actually landed and did any damage during World War II in the United States compared to what happened in Russia, right? And these chowderheads, and they're total fucking empty, like just like I shouldn't even call them chowderheads because that's an insult to chowder. Like these baby-brained morons actually looked at their economy and the situation that they had experienced post-World War II, compared it to the United States, who literally didn't have anything happen to it, and said, the United States must be doing something right. Like, yeah, they did something right by being having 2 oceans surrounding them, right? Like, yeah, of course, like a post-World War II Russian economy is not going to look as nice as a post-World War II United States economy, right? Like, what the fuck? Like, it's not about liberalizing your markets. It's not about, like I said, it's literally don't have your infrastructure get blown up by Nazis. Like, it doesn't take a fucking... Leopards ate my face, screamed the woman who voted for the leopard eating faces party. Yeah, that's essentially conservatism. Like, that's basically it. Like, oh, I can't believe I got abandoned by the people who said they wanted to abandon me. Like, yeah, bro. Like... Like, and Russia for a long time was like, okay, we can be buddies. We can be buddies with the United States. Like, we can be buddies with them. And then Putin has really realized, and the Russian people have really realized that there's no potential here. Like, this nation has become unhinged, right? That it's not interested in pursuing peace. It's not interested in trade. It's not interested in win-win conversations. It's not interested in amicable conversation, right? Like, our heroes are people like Harley Quinn, right? Like, we're becoming unhinged as a people, and so, yeah, exactly, right? Like, USSR loses 24 million people. The USA loses 400,000. Right, like still a pretty significant blow, but like not even close. And like so Russia is starting to bro up with China, who's starting to bro up with places like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Afghanistan, India. India's the big question mark. Like if China and India can start to bro down, that's going to be a huge problem for the West. Huge problem. And, like, we're just creating these circumstances. We're just doing it, right? And, like, Russia is now in, like, a very much fuck the West sort of situation, right? Like, this Ukraine war was the nail in the coffin for Russia. And all of the non-Western nations, right, are looking at it going, like, oh, boy, like, here we are, right? I think it's time to go tribal again. Screw all this government nonsense. I don't know, bud. Like, there's like a little part of me that's like, boy, it would be nice to like be a little frog, right? Just be a little frog, sit on a leaf, right? Worst thing that happens to me is a snake comes and just gobbles me up, and then that's it. It's over. I'm like, oh, okay. Just be a little frog. I actually think like it'd be fun to write a story about a frog who gets kissed by a princess and then becomes a human, and hates it so much that he works to become a frog again, right? Well, the U.S. is going to balkanize for sure. I don't see how this stays together. Like, what narrative can we create that says this place actually stays together? Like, the living standards for Americans are going to plummet so quick, and Canadians too, are going to plummet so quickly that the first thing people are going to ask themselves is like, wait, why am I paying all these taxes to the federal government? I'm not getting anything from this federal government, and I'm paying enormous taxes for nothing, right? Like, people are only willing to like really bro down on the like national pride so long as they're, fed, but it's going to stop. So What's keeping it together, man? You know what? Let's change the subject. I feel like today's been a very emotional day for me. I've been very grumbly today. What are people watching out there? What are people playing? What are people doing? How are you getting through it, guys? What art are you consuming to ease this, to make this not so difficult? What are you participating in? When you're not participating with me, of course. Which again, thank you for being here. Like, share, subscribe. Think about donating. Here's the button right here, right? Or you can pick up a Patreon, gets you into my Discord. You guys know all of this, right? You guys know all this. You beautiful people out there. And you know what, guys? I gotta say it. I've said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. Thank you so much for being here. Like, blows me away that you guys are with me on this. I have big imposter syndrome when it comes to doing this stuff, dude. For sure I do. I'm sitting here being like, why? Like, why are you guys over there? Like, why are you listening to me? Like, why are you doing any of this kind of stuff? Like, it's I'm so grateful for it. Like, I'm so grateful for it. It makes things so much easier for me. It eases the burden of this ridiculousness in incredible ways. And to know that there are people in the world who, at least in a general sense, see things as I see them. You know? No, Eric, taking a shower right now, about an hour ago. Are you taking a shower right now, bro? Right now? Dude. Your electronics, I'm worried about it. You finished your workout, body was screaming at me, loving it at the same time. Good for you, bud. Good for you. I gotta do some push-ups. I gotta do the same. Really focus on my shoulders. I gotta get to it. Trailer Park Boys. I could never get into Trailer Park Boys. I don't know. The people who love Trailer Park Boys, they really love it, right? A lifetime of trying to find my place. I've never been more sure. ML is the way. Good to see you, Dan. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, bud. Like, at this stage in the game, I'm of the opinion that anything is better. Like, anything is better than what we're doing here. Like, this ideology that's taking hold of, like, let's fail harder on purpose, which is libertarianism, is just like, and like neoliberalism of just like, let's just do the things that don't work harder. Like, it's unbelievable. I think one factor that encourages imposter syndrome is when your activity is egoless. When most of your time is about work or activity, then that moment where you remember you're an individual. I think one factor that encourages is when your activity is egoless. Then most of your time is about the work or activity. Then that moment where you remember you're an individual. It's when your activity is egoless. I don't know if I'm connecting to what you're saying there, Bumble. I know you're saying something. Like, I'm just not... Like, are you saying that, like, what encourages imposter syndrome is when your activity... When most of your time is about the work or the activity, then the moment you remember you're an individual. Like, is this like a self-care kind of thing where it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna get you to expound on that, dude. I feel like I kind of know what you're talking about. Like, I feel like there's something there. I'm just not connecting it on the other side. I'm designing a wheelchair based on a hand truck dolly for travel. Major, that's cool. You're designing a wheelchair based on a hand truck dolly for travel. Is it going to be like electric? And like, is the idea behind it like so that you can get elevations, so that you can go up and down? Like, why the dolly? Like, what does the dolly give you that just a standard wheelchair doesn't give you? I'm fascinated by that, dude. That's cool. I'm taking a shower, just listening on my cell phone. Oh, very good, Eric. Very good. honestly, I make the argument that neoliberalism is the result of libertarianism. I mean, the two more and more seem to be somewhat indistinguishable. Like, what is the real distinction between neoliberalism and libertarianism, do you think? Because I listen to the neoliberals and I listen to the libertarians and I feel like they're saying the same thing. That we need to destroy the government, give all power to the corporate sector, and that somehow this will manifest into a benefit for everybody, right? And they've got their weird little ideology to that's disconnected from reality to justify it. I'm rewatching ER, a good long series. Dude, that's super long. That's like, how many seasons is ER? Jeez Louise. How many seasons is ER? 15. 15 seasons, bro. That's a long time. Like, that's... Oh, you know what? There's a show, Canadian Doctor Drama. What was the name of it? Yes, Transplant. Canadian show, Transplant. There's a show called Transplant. And the reason why I'm telling you about it, because first of all, ER, but then this guy right here, his name's Jim Watson. I went to school with this guy. He was in my acting classes. He was like, everybody knew this kid was going to go somewhere because he was handsome, very friendly, athletic dude, used to be a hockey player, and was ascending to go up to the NHL. And then couldn't go any farther because he got hit so bad and concussed so badly that a doctor told him that if he got another concussion, it could kill him. And so he's like, well, that's the end of his hockey career. And so he shifts over into drama and art. And he was always a real great guy to be around. So easy recommend if you want a nice ER style drama with somebody who I like, Jim Watson. Real humble guy too. Real humble guy. Like, that's what I really like about the dude. Like, he's this fucking handsome. He's this fucking handsome, living like the most charmed life you'll ever see. Like, you want to talk about like the most absolutely just like he is like the silver spoon existence kind of kid, but he's real down to earth, real nice guy. Real nice guy. So I'm happy to pitch this. Even though I myself haven't watched it because I doctor drama. Like, it's not my shtick. Why doctor drama, Methane? Like, why doctor drama? I need to start getting moving though, get more active, ride my bike now that the snow is nearly all melted. Dude, I feel you. Like, the nice weather's upon us. The nice weather's upon us. You want to come on, buddy? Yes, you do. I know, buddy. I know. I love you too. I know. Milo says hi. Milo says hi. Milo says hello to you. How you doing, Milo? You doing okay? You doing okay? I hope you're having fun. Cannabinoids help? Yeah. Dude, anything you can do, man. Anything you can do. The Boys. Yeah. But then it turns into another Hollywood brutally killing Asian males fest. Just rolled my... When did that happen? What was the... I don't recall that moment. I'm not trying to say it didn't happen, because, I mean, that's how we roll, but it's... I rather liked The Boys because it finally was like a TV show about superheroes that was kind of more believable. I was like, yeah, this is what a neoliberal superhero society would generate, right? Just these, like, crazed psychos. Honestly, I'm being driven so hard by the realities of capitalism, I hardly have time to think. Yeah, that's part of it, eh? I think about that all the time. Like, how do we, here, hold on. First of all, like, I feel like I am blessed in a sense that, like, I have been given this kind of platform to be able to think aloud, create ideas, like be in an idea space, right? Like, I feel like that's a blessing that I have to think about all of the time. That, like, I remember growing up and listening in to the scientists and the politics and all of this, and just like having ideas and talking about things that I didn't hear elsewhere. And it just drove me crazy that I wasn't able to really connect in and have these discussions aired more seriously. And hopefully this channel gets me there. But one of the things I do think about, and this kind of flows into the imposter syndrome idea, is like, well, who am I? Like, why do I think that my voice and what I think is so important that I should even do this, right? Like, it's nuts to me that there's this like drive inside of me that insists like, no, you have a perspective. Your perspective is valid. Like you like, and it infuriates me that we live in a culture where I think so many people are in your position, grinning, where like you're working your ass off and you're exhausted all the time. Like you can't even think. And I think so much of what we're seeing in our society is a result of this, is that people are so overwhelmed by life and overwhelmed by what's going on that you can just tell them whatever and they have no choice but to believe it because of how the structure of their life actually works. They have no choice but to just listen to the news and be like, okay, that's what's going on, and just moving on from it, because they don't have the time or the energy to actually think critically about it, right? And that for someone to actually sit down and think critically about it and to come out with a counter narrative, it takes a fucking enormous amount of effort, and it takes an enormous amount of time. And I mean, I guess this is me but like realizing my own value in this, that like that's what I'm doing. Like I am creating alternative narratives, I am creating alternative viewpoints, I am creating a counter-cultural narrative that fundamentally critiques the society, and I've been blessed with the time and the ability and the capacity to do it. I'm just so thankful that you're all here and you're all supporting me, even with your presence. Like let other people know I exist, right? All the financial aspect of it, yeah, all that, right? But like, I just feel like the narrative is becoming so homogenous. The narrative is becoming so banal and boring and like if you stand up and create, and like the counter-cultural commentarists that we listen to are people like Joe Rogan, like a multimillionaire who has like another multimillionaire on, like Bill Maher, and they talk about common sense. Like, I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, these detached millionaires telling us what we should think about the world, and I'm just like, fuck, dude. Like, get the fuck out of here with all this. Like, it's just the most annoying shit in the world. Like, their solutions literally are just capitulate harder to the death cult. And that's common sense for them, right? Because that's all they ever did, and it worked out. What I find about workout is that it works for me, is that I find a program and force myself to go through it. Yeah, that's basically what you got to do, right? Yeah. If your life is about work or activity, it isn't about you, is it? Then a moment comes when you drift into ego and you feel all that egoless time spent wasn't really you, because ego says so. If your life is about work or activity, it isn't about you, is it? Then a moment comes when you drift into ego and you feel like all that ego-less time spent wasn't really you, because ego says so. I mean, there's some truth to that, Bumbleguppy. I know that, like, especially as I'm, like, reading audiobooks and, like, all that kind of stuff, like, a lot of that time that and I've got a project lined up right now, and I just can't seem to do it. And I feel like that's sort of what you're describing is kind of the thing. Like, I feel like it's this egoless time, or it's this time that I'm a fake person, you know? And I did do that a lot last week, but I just think that, like, it's so difficult to, like, like, don't you guys want to, like, talk to girls? Like, where do we even go for that anymore? Like, there's, like, the Tinder, and there's, like, all this kind of shit. Like, where do we even go to, like, meet a person and, like, date and, like, any of this kind of stuff? I feel like these spaces are somewhat blown up, and our society is somewhat blown up in this regard. And, and I'm starting to feel like even the things I'm doing to derive entertainment for myself are starting to be, like, not meaningful. You know what I mean? Even the things I'm deciding to do for entertainment, even the things I'm deciding to do for my own pleasure seem to be, seem to not be manifesting in a positive way in my life. That things seem to be, like, it's all distraction, you know? Like, it's all distraction. And that to try to focus on something real, or try to focus on something that really, really does matter, it's so difficult to do because it all seems so fruitless. Like, it seems, and I don't want to get doomer about it. Like, I believe that we can recover, and that, but it just seems like the only way we're going to recover is through rebellion. And so everything that rests outside of that seems to be nothing but sheer distraction to me. That, like, how do I plant roots, and how do I, you know, claim my own sense of self in a society that's always shifting underneath me, and I can never get my feet on the ground. Right? Like, I've never been able to get my feet on the ground in this society. Like, I've never been able to get to a place where I can honestly say I've been stable. Right? Like, I've been perpetually destabilized. And so now I'm coming into this place with this YouTube channel where maybe it's starting to stabilize in a way with, like, the reading of the audiobooks and, like, all of this kind of stuff. And now I'm starting to kind of say to myself, is it real? Like, is it happening? Like, is the society going to shift again? And am I going to be scrambling yet again? Like, I'm already talking about moving out of Ontario, right? That might actually happen. Just because, like, another Doug Ford election, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. Anyway. When you're doing something in a selfless way, you question your relevance. When your actions are dictated by ego, it is never questioned because, of course, you are needed and impactful. There is no difference between the two because it was the libertarian economist who gave us neoliberalism. Libertarian refuses to take responsibility for this. Yeah, but we can see Milton Friedman and Frederick Hayek had a direct involvement with Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan. Yeah. Like, this is the thing that's so kind of shocking to me about it. It's like, there's two different names, but, like, they're the same thing that are demanding the same stuff. Like, just sell the society to corporate power. Like, that's it. Like, that's libertarianism at its core, and that's neoliberalism at its core. Like, I don't know how they've managed to be called something different. Oh yeah, check it just to support my buddy Jimmy. Someone with man concussions decides to go into acting. Makes sense. Despite communism gaining traction, real advocates are still sparse, and so it is easy to feel isolated or tepid, but we must persevere. Keep up the good fight. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that, bud. I don't know why the doctor drama. It makes sense to me. They have to get at the truth. ER seems especially good at that. Yeah, it's true. There is, like, a mystery thing. You ever get into House? How deep into House did you go, Methane? The only thing I've been watching is Beat Bobby Flay, which is an Iron Chef spin-off. But I like the people on the show, plus the dinner ideas. Amazing. No, dude. Like, all of that kind of shit. I had a buddy who was, like, into cooking shows. Like, I generally find cooking shows to be a bit odd, especially cooking competitions, because, like, the whole idea of the cooking show is like that judges eat the food, right? That there's this whole taste component, right? And it's like, so I just get to look at the food. I never get to taste the food. And yet it's a competition. So I'm really just taking it on the word of like these guys. Like, and so in the end, like, I don't even get to like smell the food. I don't even get any of that. So my participation in this seems like really, like, if I want to watch a competition like this, why don't I watch a competition where it's visual, like a show like Face Off? If you guys don't know what Face Off is, like Face Off is a show that is about it's a makeup competition basically. Here, Face Off show, yeah. Yeah, it's a Hollywood makeup competition, and it's actually really fucking amazing. Like, some of the stuff that comes out of it is really, really incredible, right? And some of it sucks, obviously, but like, so for example, like, here's one of the makeups that come out of this, and this is like it. I am of the opinion that this show is actually what begins to propel like the Marvel studio guys forward in more serious ways, because they see what's possible, that people can actually create interesting and strange things that look good on film. I think that's the big thing. And when you think about like how bad makeup used to be, and makeup used to be fucking bad, like really, really bad, or rudimentary, very simple. So like this is like all visual. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Whereas cooking shows, I'm just like, well, that looks like a good chicken, I guess. Oh, he says it's good. Okay. But I get it. Like it's about and also like you're right. Like dinner ideas is always a good idea, right? And some people just love cuisine, right? Some people are just that's how my buddy is. He just loves cuisine. Remember that I keep talking about my doctorate in political science is going to be how fascism lost the battle but won the war. Yeah, I think that's right, dude. And 90% of my argument will demonstrate how libertarian policies create the neoliberal order. Well, and dude, like, I am of the opinion that, and like, if I was in your position, I would be creating my thesis around the idea that fascism and capitalism are the same thing, that the distinction that was created or that exists between the two of them exists primarily as an assumption, that anybody who studies the subject of fascism begins from the assumption that they are different, right? Whereas, and so I think it would be a huge project to undertake, because you'd essentially have to take this like enormous body of research, which I think is good. Like, don't get me wrong, like these people are good. Like the research is excellent. The conversation's really valuable. Like, all of the information's solid, right? But the problem with all of it is that it's all predicated on this base assumption that fascism and capitalism are different. And so when the researchers move forward and begin discussing fascism, right, they're basing it on the assumption that they have asserted this bias that exists at the beginning of their work. And so to illustrate that would be a major project, because you'd have to take all their work, you'd have to acknowledge it, you'd have to comb through it, you'd have to state it, and then you'd have to show how, like, yeah, so he says that this is what makes fascism, but you can see this very clearly in capitalist societies, right? And you'd really have to do it that way. You'd be like that, like the 14 signs of fascism, in my view, is the perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? So, oh, come on now. Yeah, okay. The cult of tradition. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't think American capitalism or British capitalism had the cult of tradition? Well, you think the veneration of the Queen of England, like the veneration of the founding fathers, right? Like that's extremely embedded in the capitalist ethos, right? The rejection of modernism, right, which views the rationalistic development of Western culture since the Enlightenment as a descent into depravity, right? Sounds pretty close to the evangelicals, right? Sounds pretty like when did American capitalism embrace modernism? Like at what point, right? And like the only time it actually did was when the communists and the socialists were in the streets under Roosevelt. The cult of action for action's sake, which dictates that action is of value in itself, should be taken without intellectual reflection. George W. Bush literally saying like we're gonna act from a gut. We're gonna go with our gut on this one. Right? Like, what's that? Like, that's a capitalist society, right? Unless your claim is that America was fascist, right? Disagreement is treason. Fascism devalues intellectual discourse and critical reasoning as barriers to action, as well out of fears that such analysis will expose the contradictions embodied in a syncretistic faith. Like, I mean, the McCarthy era, for God's sakes, take a look what they're doing right now to, what's his name? To blonde fella, WikiLeaks, Assange, right? Like, and he literally didn't even disagree. He just, like, published the stuff, right? Fear of difference. I mean, do we need to go much deeper on this? Right? The whole civil rights movement, slavery itself, right? Like the fact that American capitalism had slavery, literal slavery in it, right? Like what is the difference between fascism and capitalism, really? Like I'm really struggling to find it. Appeal to frustrated middle class, like fearing economic pressure from the demands and aspiration of lower social groups, literally the capitalist argument, right? Like people are kept homeless in order to scare the middle class, like that's well trodden. Obsession with a plot and the hyping up of an enemy threat, like what are you talking about? Like, we've always done this. Like we've always done this. The American boogeyman. Right? There's throughout its entire history, there's the boogeymanning of the other and the hyping of an enemy threat. Right? Manifest destiny. Talking about an obsession with a plot. Manifest destiny. Fascist societies rhetorically cast their enemies as, at the same time, too strong and too weak. We do this all the time. Pacifism is tracking with the enemy because life is permanent warfare. Contempt for the weak. Everybody is educated to become a hero. Machismo, selective populism, newspeak. Like, check. And not just recently. Like, throughout history. Right? Throughout the history of America. And Britain. Right? And the European powers. Right? Like, all of that connects as cleanly as I can see to capitalist societies. Like, I don't see the difference. And so I think that the difference has been fostered by capitalists so that when the capitalists get called out for what they're doing, right, that what they're doing is evil, because it's capitalism, they get to point at the people who have been caught out and say, they're not capitalists, they're fascists. Much in the same way that they do it with like crony capitalism or corporate socialism is another one that they call it, right? That it's, instead of saying, no, that's just capitalism, they can say, oh no, that's fascism and we agree with you and we're going to fight against fascism that we're going to suppress because fascism is bad. Leave capitalism alone, right? That's the strategy and the tactic, and that's the thesis that I would be writing if I was in your position. Which isn't to say that that's what you should do. It's just saying that that's what I would do. Well, every Asian male character they feature is killed off in the most brutal way. Yeah, it's the most common Hollywood trope. The director thinks they slick. Yeah, I've noticed that, dude. Especially the more I talk to you. The more I talk to you, the more I see this. That like, when there's like an Asian martial artist or something on the screen, right? We're supposed to perceive them as a threat, like they know what they're doing, but then they get like completely owned, right? And it is like this. It is something deep inside of our like ethos that like we see the Asian cultures, we respect the danger of the Asian cultures, but at the end of the day, we completely dominate them, right? Like that's the American. Oh, this reminds me, Princess Mononoke director. This guy, Hayao Miyazaki. If you haven't seen Princess Mononoke, easy recommend. Critiques. Oh, come on. I had this really good critiques Western movies. I had this really good article ready to go. Yeah, this is it right here. Good. This guy here, right? He's a director. He made Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, right? Brilliant artist, brilliant storyteller. If you don't know this guy, boy, are you in for a really wonderful treat. Von Schwinger, good to see you. Good to see you, Von, bud. I'm taking the rest of the time to talk more culture, less burn down the halls of power, which we should do. But so Miyazaki named Hollywood films he hates the most. He's undoubtedly amongst the greatest living artists today, known for his seminal masterpieces such as Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, among others. His contributions to the art of animation have inspired artists from various domains, including live-action filmmakers, who have praised Miyazaki's understanding of movement. That's absolutely the truth. Although the aging auteur had announced his retirement to the world, Miyazaki decided to make one final addition to his illustrious filmography before bidding farewell to the world of cinema. This is always how he was. After every project, he retires, and then he comes back. Every single time. I'm dead convinced that this guy is going to die, and when he dies, someone will pull out from like his desk a full film that he has made. I'm for sure this is how this guy's going to do things. He is currently making an adaptation of his favorite childhood novel, How Do You Live, by Yoshino Genzaburo, and has dedicated the upcoming project to his grandson. Over the years, Miyazaki's political stance about America's involvement in global conflicts, as well as the country's contribution towards the globalization of American culture, has been unwavering. Anti-jeans, anti-bourbon, anti-burgers, anti-fried chicken, anti-cola, anti-American coffee, anti-New York, anti-West Coast, Miyazaki once said while describing his beliefs. According to excerpts from multiple interviews, Miyazaki's dislikes for all things American also extends to the realm of cinema. Despite the fact that the Japanese auteur had named John Ford as one of his chief visual influences and even named his 1949 film My Darling Clementine among his personal favorites, he doesn't feel the same way about other popular American films. Americans shoot things, and they blow up, and the like. So, as you'd expect, they make movies like that, Miyazaki stated. If someone is the enemy, it's okay to kill endless numbers of them. Lord of the Rings is like that. If it's the enemy, there's killing without separation between civilians and soldiers. That falls within collateral damage. Miyazaki compared the visual politics of large-scale Hollywood productions such as Lord of the Rings to the country's international policies. Attacking America's actions in Afghanistan, Miyazaki claimed that such projects are a dangerous addition to public discourse because they diminish the value of human life by weaponizing the audience through cinematic violence. Miyazaki continued, "How many people are being killed in attacks in Afghanistan? The Lord of the Rings is a movie that has no problem doing that, not separating civilians from enemies, apparently. If you read the original work, you'll understand, but in reality, the ones who are being killed are Asians and Africans. Those who don't know that, yet say they love fantasy, are idiots. Throughout his body work, Miyazaki has conducted continuous conversations about anti-war pacifism, an ethical belief that has been deeply influenced by his own experiences. Miyazaki has often explored the paradoxes of pacifism in a world that embraces violence through his art, which is why these cinematic spectacles fail to amuse him. When his magnum opus Spirited Away became the first anime to win Best Animated Feature Film at the Oscars, Miyazaki refused to attend the ceremony because he did not want to support America's actions in the Iraq War. Even though his producers asked him not to speak about the issue, he later came clean and revealed that his producer had felt the same way. Miyazaki has also been very critical of Steven Spielberg's iconic film series Indiana Jones, addressing many of the issues caused by capitalism in post-colonial nations. Miyazaki admonished those who fail to recognize the political and racial allegories embedded within the subtext of supposedly innocent and purely entertaining action films. Even in the Indiana Jones movies, there is a white guy who shoots people, right? Japanese people who go along and enjoy with that are unbelievably embarrassing, he explained. You are the ones that get shot. Watching those movies without any self-awareness is unbelievable. There's no pride, no historical perspective. You don't know how you are viewed by a country like America. And it's true, actually. You watch this clip, and of course I won't play that here because this for sure won't make the cut. But like, Indiana Jones basically just beats the shit out of brown people the whole time. Right? The whole film is just him like beating the shit out of endless degrees of like brown people and Nazis. Because he's a white American, right? I'm seeing a lot of libertarian allying themselves with them more and more. Even found evidence of Frederick Hayek praising the KKK. Oh yeah, there's a good connection right there. Brian, when relationships are on the back burner. I know, dude. I know. I actually, it's frustrating. There was this one young lady who I asked out, and she seemed interested, and we had like a nice connection. And then I ran into her and was like, "Hey, what's up? Like, why aren't we connecting? Like, what's going on?" And she literally says to me, "Look, dude, I'm working 2 jobs. Like, I'm working 2 full-time jobs. I just don't think I've got time." Right? And it's just like that seems to be the narrative. Like, there's no culture of it. There's no community of it because everybody's fucking working their asses off. Right? Like, and then I start to think, like, would I even have time? Like, would I even have time? And the reality is I'd have to make time, right? Like, I'd have to make time. And that would mean that I would do less of this or less of the audiobooks, which in the end, like it or leave it, means less money for me. Which is just like, what a pretend fake society this is. Like, what a fake bullshit society this is. Everyone's working their asses off. Everyone's exhausted. Nobody can actually get together. Nobody can actually spend a moment together. Right? Like, this is total fucking bullshit. Like, it's total fucking bullshit on every single level. And we keep voting for it. We keep just going along with it. I'm astounded. Like, I really do think, like, historians of the future are going to look back on this period of time and be like, these guys must have had lead poisoning in their brain. Like, we really got to start talking about ourselves. Like, do we think maybe we actually do have just, like, a significant mental illness? Like, we're not even trying to structure our society so people can just, like, get together with friends and have, like, romantic relationships. It just doesn't exist. Like, I think there's something wrong with our brains. I think it's possible that all of these phones and all of these screens and all this stuff is actually irradiating our brains and making us very irrational and stupid. Like, it's something that we have to start considering. Because, like, what else explains it? Like, are we just evil and stupid? Like, it just seems to be the case. That we're, like, sacrificing literally everything for no benefit, for no gain, for no purpose whatsoever, except to make sure that fake money dollars that we create out of thin air in the first place goes in the hands of the right people. Like, it's just so fucking stupid. I met my wife at work. It was a pyramid scheme website project, and we would go out to the balcony and get away from the BS and roll our eyes together. The site went bust, of course, but we kept going. That's so sweet. That is actually really nice. Yeah, every workplace I've ever worked at, if you attempted to start a romantic relationship, they'd fire you. If I didn't have to provide stability for other people, I would move to Detroit. They have houses for sale for $2,500. Yeah, but capitalism leverages your family relationships. You have to take care of my kids, so I have to participate in the economy. Yeah, that's what it does, right? They trap you. It's wage slavery for a reason, right? House was very repetitive. Yes. Thank you, Methane. Thank you. Like, how many times... Did you ever see that House GIF? There's this hilarious House GIF. The House GIF mouse bites. Yeah. Yeah. Did you try the medicine drug? I did try the medicine drug. Only stupid people try the medicine drug. You are stupid. I gave patient stupid drug. You are a black man. This vexes me. I have blood dripping from my nose that is dripping. That's bad. Also, I was bitten by mice due to my poor hygiene. You need hygiene drug. Also, I have not spoken in a while. No, hygiene drug will kill patient. He needs mouse bites to live. I forbid this. I don't care. More mouse bites. Mouse bites in a... I feel better. No more noseblood. Thank you, doctor. I am very smart. I too am in this episode. Yeah. Yeah. That's literally every episode of House. So repetitive, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. But you are also right about Hugh Laurie. Like, Hugh Laurie is like an unsung comedian. Like, we here in the West think of him as a dramatic actor because of House. But when he did Laurie and Fry, and also Blackadder, and he was basically like he's a very well established comedic actor, which I'm just like. Like, he plays a ponce really well, you know? Just like a dumb, like Justin Trudeau. Like, he would play like Justin Trudeau really well when he was younger. Frederick Hayek and Milton Friedman worked together, and they were the one who came up with the neoliberalism name, but not sure why they did that. If you also want to watch a fun video, you should play a video that I posted on YouTube, and you can see how psychotic libertarian economists really are. It's the short version, because there's one. Discord, eh? The humans are waking up. Some evidence that humanity is on the verge of a mass spiritual awakening, and some possible explanations for why that must be. Like, doesn't it feel right now, Branwyn, doesn't it feel like right now we are, like, basically constipated, and we're trying really hard to, like, get the dump out, and it's just not gonna happen, right? Well, I actually do think it is going to happen, and when it happens, it's going to be just like, blah. Oh, is this it right here? 10 intellectuals. How long is this? 20 minutes. Nah, brah, 20 minutes. Nah. I'll watch that later, though, for myself. Now is the time for smell-o-vision. Yeah, that's good. Capitalism improving things. Already planning to do demonstrates that capitalism and fascism are the same, and even say that fascism evolved into libertarianism, which leads to neoliberalism. Just like painting the pig, right? Like, just paint the pig a different color. Yeah, this is 2022 so far. Mononoke was one of the first full animes I saw, my introduction. I think maybe Akira was technically the first I saw. That's a pretty good list, dude. Akira was really good. Like, lots of... Akira set the table for a lot of shit. Like, a lot of shots that you see in cinema are, like, directly stolen from Akira. Like the very famous shot where he's on the motorcycle and it's sliding away from the camera and then it pauses. That shot gets stolen all the time. It's very, very dramatic. It's bread for the people. That's right. My name is pronounced Schwinger Ingen. hold on. Schweringen. Schweringen. It's like Schweringen. Woo woo. Schweringen. Oh my goodness, dude. Have you seen Grave of the Fireflies? Bud. Talk about a evocative name. Grave of the Fireflies. I have not, obviously, because I keep saying Grave of the Fireflies over and over again. Oh yeah, this is like a post-war... I actually feel like the Japanese have done a much better job of dealing with post-war trauma through their art than the rest of us have. And because they lost, like, big time. And their culture is, like, really weird and interesting and, like, very extravagant and colorful. And there's, like, no rules. Like, and it's like, and like, a film, like, in the most reduced way, like, Godzilla is an expression of this post-war trauma. That, like, what is Godzilla? Godzilla is an enormous force that comes and just destroys this fucking civilization. And there's, like, literally nothing they can do about it. Sounds like America, right? Sounds just like instead of it being like a naval military force coming to destroy you, it's a monster. Like just like a complete beast that can breathe fire and just fuck you up, right? And like that is a pretty clear expression, in my view, of a post-war trauma and dealing with this idea of like an overwhelming force coming to just wipe you out. And it seems like they've delved a lot of their focus and energy away from war and away from, which isn't to say they don't have like a war agenda or anything like that, but it seems like the Japanese culture, because they, in a post-World War II sense, they've been forced to not have a standing military. They've been forced away from militarism. And because they've been forced away from militarism, they're focusing on other things. And they've created this really interesting, like, animation culture and this very interesting society that's just, like, fucking Super Mario, for God's sakes. Like crazy shit, right? And so, capitalism always appropriates the heroes and causes of the people. Louis Riel hung for treason, now father of Confederation. Climate protests. Trudeau marches with protests. This is their way. Yeah, for sure, dude. I really need new glasses, bud. I've been there, bud. Like, if I don't have these glasses on, I'm legally blind. Yes, this is what goes on mentioned in the Discord. Tolkien's orcs are based on racist ideas about Asian people of his time. Yellow Peril. Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, Ligandes. I knew you'd like that, dude. I wanted to read this for you, mainly. Because, like, I knew that you would dig this guy. Miyazaki is super like this. And he's all about the art. Like, he's all about the art. And I really admire him for this. That all of the like when he decided not to accept the award and didn't go to the Oscar ceremony after winning, I was just like, this guy's what a baller this guy is, right? Like, absolutely. And I have a massive amount of respect for artists who don't bite down on the poison pill of capital, because it's so tough. Like, it's so difficult not to, right? And the capitalists make it as appealing as they possibly can, right? They make it like as like, take a look. I mean, we want to use the pill example. I immediately start thinking about The Matrix, right? The Matrix 4, right? Like, The Matrix 4 literally got one of the original directors on the project, and her literally she says it in the film through one of the characters, the only reason she's involved in the project is because they were going to move forward without her. Right? Like, they were going to make Matrix 4 no matter what. And so she thought to herself, well, like, might as well. Right? Might as well. Never thought about Lord of the Rings that way. Oh, yeah, man. Lord of the Rings. I use Lord of the Rings for a lot of analogies. Like, capitalism is the One Ring. We should throw the One Ring back into the mountain, into Mount Doom and all that. But, like, there is definitely the racial element. Like, it's, and Miyazaki is absolutely right. When you read the book, when you read Lord of the Rings, it's, you can't ignore it. Like, it's explicitly stated. Like, it's very clear that what Tolkien is talking about is Asians and like Mongolian people, like that sort of stuff. Like it's Africans for sure, Africans. Like there's no, I think it's completely undebatable, and yeah, it's part of our heritage. You're just a human, a victim of the insane John Lennon isolation. Yeah, like this isolation, dude. This, and it's constant, right? We're all just like grinding into it. Blackadder Christmas episode, a holiday tradition. Very nice, very nice. I'm actually really partial to Mr. Bean and Rowan Atkinson's work during that period of time. Like, Rowan Atkinson, for those of you who don't know, and I mean, how could you not? Rowan Atkinson, like this guy, Mr. Bean. Absolute love his stuff. Absolutely love his stuff. So, some of those iconic stuff. The Johnny English stuff was always a bit confusing to me, but not confusing, but just like, I don't know why he wanted to do it. Have I studied the psychology of sociopaths? You seem very literate on the subject matter. Yeah, I have. I actually have. There are papers out that I forget where they were from. Rich people become sociopath study. Will this get us here? A study in psychological science found, yeah. Is this going to connect? There's like a University of California study. Like, I spent a good amount of time digging deep into this kind of stuff. Yeah, all these links are all dead now too. Like, you can see, like, back in 2015, right? Like, there was like a real... there was a real, like, what's the actual scientific study University of, like, according to psychology professor, 1 in 5 business leaders may have psychopathic tendencies. Here's why. Like, and literally every single time the subject is studied, right? The result is the same, right? Like, it's predictable now. We can predict it. That the more and more wealth you accumulate, and the more and more separated you become from what is standard in your society, the more and more psychotic and the more psychopathic you become. Like, and it's not me saying it. Like, that's the thing. Like, this isn't a claim that I'm making. This is coming from behavioral sciences and the law. What is this? Published Interscience. You got PhD, PhD, PhD. Right? And articles like this, I used to read articles like this for fun. Right? Know your enemy. You gotta know who these guys are. And like, And what's interesting about this particular study, and this interesting is that there isn't a counter study, right? Like there's not a counter study that I've never seen a study done on the issue that turns around and says, actually, in fact, quite the opposite. And anytime the issue is studied, and now they're starting to see it. They've got it so that when they study it, they can see it unfolding in real time, right? That they can like literally take just like a normal group of people, and then steadily separate one of them in terms of wealth, and very steadily that person loses empathy for the rest of the group and starts to act in their what they consider to be their own self-interest to the detriment of the rest of the group. Like we can see it occur in real time, and it's a very dangerous aspect of human reality, right? I only got random glimpses of Mr. Bean, never sat down and watched any real amount of him. He's a good time, dude. I recommend Mr. Bean. I do. I think Godzilla is the zeitgeist of Japan's historical endurance of earthquakes and the fires they produce, tsunamis, and even volcanoes. Oh, yeah. Like, it's just, like, literally, like, a natural force. Yeah, that's probably some of that, too, for sure. If you're watching later, I recommend the 1 hour long version. The difference between the two is not that much different. One has more quotes and clips than the other. Oh, yeah, I'll look into it, bud. I'll look into it for sure. I'm glad that I'm taking this last hour to be, like, a little bit more faffy. I need it for my soul. I think we all need it for our soul. Like, just like... Oh, has this been playing this whole time? All right. Like... I worry that we're spending too much of our free time. I'm worried that I'm spending too much of my free time in a state of distraction. That I'm not pursuing art or society or anything meaningful in like an artistic way. I'm not attempting to enrich myself in any kind of way. And that's not to say that I think that escapism is necessarily bad. I've said several times, I'm sure you guys know, that Neil Gaiman convinced me that escapism is acceptable. That he said the only people who don't want others to escape are jailers. And that really, really flipped the script for me. That simple statement really made me realize that my perception of escapism was wrong-headed. But at the same time, I do consider myself an artist. I do consider myself someone who studies the arts and tries to get involved in artistic pursuits. And I worry that I've been more on the path of just distraction. See, this is why cooking as an art is great. You got to eat, so you can't procrastinate. There you go, Bumble Guppy. That's clever. I like that. That's great, dude. For me, like cooking and food and all that kind of stuff, I literally am just like if I could not eat, like genuinely, I'm being very dead serious when I say this. If I could not eat and just be sustained and like go through a cycle and then die or whatever, or like eat once a year or once a month or something, like I would absolutely do that. I find eating to be an enormous waste of time. I understand there's like a flavor thing and everybody's like, ooh, but the flavor profile and like all this kind of stuff. I just am like, I feel every time I sit down and actually am cooking something, I'm standing there being like, this is a fucking bullshit waste of time. If I could take, like, you know when you watch like Futurama and he like pulls out the thing and it like pours out like bachelor chow and then just like puts it in a microwave for a minute and then eats the bachelor chow, I'm set. Like that's fine. I'm completely fine with that idea. Just play with a little presentation on the plate. There's an artistic expression, creates a beauty. Yeah, no, you're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong. That like Bachelor Chow was hilarious, dude. And it was really hilarious because I looked at it and really thought to myself, like, yeah, like my heart went straight to it. Of course, I have I've got a gluten intolerance, so I'm sure that I couldn't do something like that. Also, I mean, I don't want to eat garbage. Like, and I'm sure that like Bachelor Chow would be like ground up pig anuses and stuff, right? Like, I want to eat food that's actually good. You know, that's good for me. But like when I get to cooking, I basically like slow cook chilies, right? Like that's how I usually roll. Make like a nice big batch of something so I can always just like scoop out a thing of it, heat it up and eat it, right? Yeah, it's a waste of time, but it's arguably the most important thing we do. Yeah, no, I'm not fighting you on it. I just am like yeah, if someone could give me like the can of Bachelor Chow and assure me that it was good for me, right? Not or at least not bad for me, I for sure would just be like, yeah, Bachelor Chow, dude, let's go. I made a vegetarian chili on Sunday for myself and my daughter. Amazing. I highly recommend Chipotle in adobo. Fantastic. My youngest has been expressing reservations about eating meat for a few years, but I never encouraged her because it was very odious to my conservative ex. But now that I'm vegetarian, I can't prevent. Yeah. My rule when it comes to meat, and of course I'm very bad at it, like I am, like I want to be better, but I think I could be okay about it. I don't buy meat when I go to the grocery store. That's how I do. I just don't buy the meat when I go to the grocery store. But if I go out, and if somebody gives me food, right, I don't complain, right? Like my brother and his wife went vegetarian, and they were real sticklers, and it created a lot of difficulty, like especially like rural conservative Manitobans, right? Like, so it's like that scene in My Big Fat Greek Wedding where the guy shows up and she's like, there's a Greek woman and she's like, I'll make you some beef. And he goes, oh no, sorry, I'm a vegetarian. She goes, vegetarian? What's that mean? And she goes, well, I don't eat meat. She goes, you don't eat meat? Well, that's okay. I'll make you lamb. And then walks off. And you're just like, yeah, like that's seems accurate to the rural Manitoban ethos. Clean food only Fight Club. I'm confused by your comment, Harry, but I am intrigued. I think the amount of processing in food is probably bad, and they're hiding to what extent from us, for sure. I would rather real food. Yeah, I don't care precisely other than that. Well, also, like, we're starting to get reports where, like, there's, like, plastic, like, microplastic fibers are showing up in people's bodies. You know? Like, that's weird. Like, I worry very much about our processed foods and how we're industrializing all of this and trying to just, like, create enormous quantities of it. And the quality has degraded so badly that now we're starting to see, like, literal waste products in our food. And I'm like, you know what a good way to avoid that is? Just eat raw food. Like, I mean, cook it, right? But, like, get the vegetables, don't eat anything processed. Like, literally buy tomatoes. Like, yeah. Sugar corn, yeah, the corn syrup, dude. To the Americans in the chat, you guys have it way worse than us. We banned corn syrup here in Canada, so you literally have to like go out of your way to get a product that has corn syrup in it, right? Like, but like so many foods in America just have cornstarch and corn syrup in it. Because it's a great filler, right? And but it's just so bad for you. Like, it's unbelievably bad for you. My wife and I are watching our cholesterol and vegetarian recipes are pretty useful. Recently been watching videos from Middle Eastern Mediterranean cuisine. Look at you, a man of the world. Oh yeah. I love, if I go out for food, I want to go to a nice Ethiopian place. I love the Ethiopian food. That's the way to do, man. That's the way to do. Yeah, a great way to avoid overprocessing is eliminate profit from the equation. Yeah, no shit. Because they were pissing and putting fecal containment in the food. / Fight Club. What the fuck? Harry, what's going on over there, bro? What are you talking about? Who is pissing and putting fecal containment into the food? In the movie Fight Club? What is happening right now? Like, I like that movie Fight Club, by the way. It's what a fun movie that was. I had a buddy who, like, right at the beginning of the film, there's like I guess spoilers. I'll just say spoiler alert here. I mean, for anybody who hasn't seen the movie Fight Club or doesn't know. But, like, right at the beginning, there's like a flicker where Brad Pitt's character, like, flickers onto the screen for just like a frame. And my buddy literally saw that and was like, oh, they're the same person. He just instantly. And so while the rest of us are like, they're the same person, he's like, oh yeah, I was right. It's like people who put together that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father because they know German, and I think Darth Vader stands for like the father or like father something, and you're just like, oh yeah, okay. Like, so for American audiences, like, Darth Vader just sounds like a cool name, but like, dude, and the prequel movies sucked so bad. Like, I'm trying to give Lucas a break. Oh, hey Mark, how you doing, bud? Dark Father, that's what it was. That's what it was. How you doing, Mark? Good to see you, bud. In Fight Club, the movement was putting contaminants in the food. When he is at dinner with Marla, he tells the waiter, clean food only. Oh, they're like fucking with the food. Oh yeah, we didn't even do the number draw. Let's do it for Mocked. Jar Jar, that is all. For you, Mocked, we waited. We waited for you, Mocked. That's what this is. I didn't forget. We waited.
Here we go for today's number. It's April 12, 2022.
Well, the first one was the one that was actually made with some heart.
Each ball has a number. Numbers 1 through 10. Swirl the numbers.
I'm going with a 10. I'm going with a 10.
Pick a number.
Here we go. Here we go.
Today's
got a good spread.
Number is
decent spread.
5.
Missed it anyway. Missed it anyway. Whoop, 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 whoop. It's all right, man. That's all right. Better luck next time. Better luck next time, chat. Everybody whiffed it. Everybody missed. That's how it goes sometimes, you know? Sometimes you swing your hardest and you miss. Yeah. What can you do? What can you do? Sad trombone. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yep. I'm actually more or less of the opinion that the reason why the prequels got made... Remember, I'm a toy guy, right? I worked in the toy business for 5 years. So, I think it was Kenner. So, when Star Wars was getting made... they were trying to find a toy maker to actually make the toys for the movie. But you got to remember, nobody gave a shit about Star Wars at the beginning, right? Like, nobody thought that Star Wars was going to become this, like, phenomenon that it became. everybody thought it was just going to be another like kind of faffy, fringy on the side sort of thing. And so you're going around to like your Mattels and your Hasbros and all this in order to buy up, or in order to get your toy made, and they all reject him, right? Lucas can't get these toys made. So he finds this like really small toy company by the name of Kenner, and they sign this like real sweetheart deal, right? They sign this real sweetheart deal where they only have to pay something like 4 or 5% royalties, which is pretty nice to Lucas, and so you think about like how many Star Wars toys have been made since then, and how much money has been made, right? And so Kenner becomes like a pretty big powerhouse because of this, right? Like they're selling all these Star Wars toys, and people are losing their minds over it. You think about the Ewoks, right? The Ewoks, for God's sakes, right? Like all of that kind of shit. Like all of this stuff sells, right? And in the contract, the way that Kenner had to keep the deal going is that they just every year they had to pay like $1,000 licensing fee to LucasArts, right? So like literally every year they just send $1,000 to LucasArts, and that would upkeep the licensing fee, right? And so they would have the rights to make the toys for Star Wars. So they had like the exclusive rights to make Star Wars toys. So before the prequels get made, Kenner gets bought by, I believe it was Hasbro, could be Mattel as well though, one of the big ones. And this agreement that Kenner had between themselves and LucasArts, well, Hasbro, let's say it's Hasbro, they forget to pay the licensing fee, right? Or they're unaware that they have to pay this licensing fee, so they allow the licensing fee to lapse. Which means that LucasArts now reclaims the license for all of the Star Wars toys. And that's when Lucas begins talking about making a prequel trilogy. And he goes around, and I believe he swings the deal with Hasbro, except now the royalty fees is 18% to LucasArts. So instead of it being the old 5%, now it's 18% to George Lucas, right? And you take a look at some of the characters, Jar Jar, as we have previously mentioned, and you can see pretty clearly that it's an attempt to sell toys, right? Like, and the toy market and the amount of money that Lucas made from the toy sales was enormous. He made a huge amount of money off of the toy sales, right? And the reason how George Lucas knew that Jar Jar was a failure is because the toy that nobody bought was Jar Jar. So it wasn't just that everybody was like grumbling about how stupid Jar Jar was, because he was so fucking stupid. It was that the Darth Jar Jar meme. See, I actually think that Jar Jar, like, what's interesting to me is if you sit down and actually talk to like a Star Wars nerd, to like a total fucking nerd who invests a lot of effort and time into this, a really interesting narrative exists for Jar Jar that they never really got into the films. But like, it's established that Jar Jar is this idiot, right? And so, and who is the figure who is responsible for putting forward the legislation in order to give power to Palpatine? It's Jar Jar, right? So Palpatine literally uses this idiot in order to further his agenda. And I don't think they knew they were going to do that. I don't think that was part of the initial idea in the trilogy. But it became that. I wonder how all those Baby Yodas, Grogu or whatever, are doing. Baby Yoda, dude, Baby Yoda crushes. Nah, Baby Yoda is like the thing. I remember my last year when I was in toys, the number one phone call that we would be getting calls about was Baby Yoda, for sure. No, they knew exactly what they were doing with Baby Yoda. They knew exactly what they were doing. Darth Jar Jar meme. Yeah, the driving force behind the Darth Jar Jar theory is that Binks was so absurdly clumsy and inept that it borders on an act. It would be the perfect cover-up for a Sith apprentice who wanted to infiltrate the Republic. Dude, if they committed to that, can you imagine if they committed to this idea that Jar Jar Binks was, in fact, a Sith apprentice? I think people would have been like, whoa. I think it would have been like the biggest, like, flip around. Like, we're talking about, like, Kaiser Soze level, like, flip around. Like, whoa, it was him the whole time, right? Like, I think people would have ate that up, right? That would have been very, very clever of them to do. To, like, make Jar Jar so absurd and stupid and hated, and then, like, flip it into this, like, oh, by the way, Jar Jar's actually, like, a fucking Sith apprentice who and like all the clumsiness and all that ineptness and everything just goes away, and it's like obvious that he was like totally pretending, and he reveals it in like the perfect moment to completely like fuck someone over in just like a perfect way. That's how you absolutely pay Jar Jar off. That's absolutely how you pay Jar Jar off. But it's pretty clear that they didn't actually have a plan. Like, that's what made the prequel movies pretty bad, in my view. And, like, the new movies, too. Like, the new trilogy is terrible. And it's for that reason, too. Where it's just, like, they clearly didn't have a plan. They clearly didn't know what to do with it. So they just, like, shit something out. Oh, yeah. I think Darth Jar Jar would have been way over the top, but thinking, I'm not... would I be opposed to the idea? Probably not. No, dude, I think they could have totally pulled it off. I think they could have completely pulled it off. That, like, everybody hated Jar Jar Binks. Like, everybody hated Jar Jar Binks. And was just... Honestly, like, the prequel movies in the first place are so fucking stupid. Like, how do you... Look, nobody gives a shit about, like, Anakin Skywalker as a baby. Like, nobody cares about Anakin Skywalker as a kid, right? Like, everybody wants to see Anakin Skywalker with the lightsaber doing backflips and kicking ass, right? Like, that's... Everybody wants to see this. And I just genuinely don't know how you miss this very obvious arc, which is introduction to Anakin Skywalker. He's the apprentice to Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? He gets caught on like a planet, right? Doing a kind of thing, right? Obi-Wan witnesses him do something kind of like dark sidey, like very scary, right? And so the council right at the end of the movie kind of downgrades him, right? Sees that he's kind of like, no, we're less interested in that, and literally like in comes Palpatine, end of movie 1, right? So Anakin has been bad Jedi'd, in walks Palpatine, literally end of movie 1. Movie 2 is entirely Palpatine turning Anakin away from the Jedi Council, who more and more is just alienating Anakin because they're threatened by him. And the power that he has and the dark side that he has, which is getting fostered more and more by Palpatine, who moves him over, and so that by the end of movie 2, rather, so end of movie 1, enter Palpatine, end of movie 2, Anakin turns to the dark side at the end of movie 2. And why that's important, and I genuinely don't know how you miss this, right? Yes, please, I will watch an entire movie of Anakin Skywalker going around killing Jedi. Like, yeah, like, obviously, like, who thought that there was who thought that the killing off of the Jedi Order should have been enact Order 66, and like we get a montage of like stormtroopers capping, like, talk about stupid and like a total waste, total trash. Like that's a trash story, right? Like, literally, if George Lucas was standing in front of me and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a new trilogy, the first thing that I would say is, oh yeah, cool, it will be awesome to watch an entire movie of Anakin Skywalker having a series of lightsaber battles with Jedi Masters, fucking Yoda himself. Like, it'd be awesome to watch Anakin Skywalker as that process goes down the pipe, he steadily becomes Vader, right? Like, so he loses a limb in this particular fight, which they replace with a robot. He loses a limb in this particular fight. And so steadily he's just receiving more and more injuries as he defeats the Jedi Council over the course of like a 2.5 hour long movie, where he's just steadily, we're watching a person descend physically and mentally deeper and deeper and deeper into just this bleak, dark side place, and just like commit to it. Like the way they did it was very much just like flip switch, I'm dark side now, right? It was like when what's her name, Daenerys in Game of Thrones, when she was on the dragon. And everybody was like, okay, cool, war over, we're all laying. And then she just like burns the place down, and you're all just like, oh, so she's crazy, I guess. Right? Like, and oh yeah, dude, lack of action, like, how do you miss it? Like, for real, dude. Like, I don't know how you miss it. Like, why would you make that trilogy and think anything other than film 3 is Anakin killing the Jedi Order, right? Like, that's the whole film. Right? Yeah, prequels weren't art. It was what too many people decided would make them the most money with a Star Wars theme. Methane nails it. Like, Methane's nailed it. Like, that's it. Right? Like, and it's another reason why I don't trust Hollywood movies anymore. Right? I can't get hype for stuff. Like the new Dune. Somebody said yesterday's stream that the new Dune wasn't as good as the 1983 Dune. And I was just like, the 1983 Dune wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. And so I think it would be pretty easy to and I like the art that I've seen in the new Dune looks pretty good. And I love the music, and like the actors look good, and everybody is saying that it's okay. But the reality is the second movie isn't out yet. And so I'm just like, nah, I'm just not going to spend my time on it because I don't trust these guys. Right? Like, I just don't trust this industry anymore to actually produce anything that's any good. And the only time I'm actually going to push any energy into something is if it's over already and everybody is saying it's excellent, or if I don't care. Right? Like, there's a new Addams Family thing coming out. Addams Family Wednesday. Right? There's no. Come on. New flicks. Right? Like, there's a new Addams Family thing coming out. This is the young lady they have cast as Wednesday. So they're leaning more into the idea that she's a Latina, right? Because Gomez always was, right? And the casting is actually really interesting. They've cast Catherine Zeta-Jones is going to be Morticia, which I was just like, yes, absolutely. And then Louise Guzman is playing Gomez. And I'm looking at that being like, that is an interesting choice. That's a really interesting choice, especially coming off of like Raul Julia. And so I'm looking at it and I'm just being like, this is going to be fun. And I don't care if it's good or not, you know? And so I'm for sure going to watch this right off the cuff. Who else is in this? Oh, there's new people. You haven't looked at this in a while. Who they got? Come on. I don't care about any of the... Well, I do care, but like, who's the... Come on, who's Fester? Fester. No. Okay, so they haven't cast Fester. Maybe Fester's not even in it. But anyway, but outside of just like watching something just because it's like fun, right? Like I've been betrayed way too many times, right? the 1983 Dune Sting was worth the whole movie, I will kill him. You're right, dude. Sting nailed that role too. He like committed. I actually think like David Lynch, I think, did a fine job. I just think that the industry itself was not ready, or it didn't have the capability to handle a film like that. You know, like you think about the Harkonnens, right? And like the new Harkonnens look really good. Harkonnen. Like the new Harkonnens look really good, if you ask me. Like this more subtle makeuping, right? Like things are a lot more streamlined. It looks more subtle and realistic. It's still true to what they're saying. Whereas like the 1983 guys were goofy. Like, come on. Like, you're seeing what I'm seeing, right? Like, you're seeing what I'm seeing, right? Like, it's goofy looking. And, like, it's supposed to be kind of gross, but it's not quite working, you know? Whereas the newer stuff, the new Harkonnens, yeah, that's a good way of saying it, Methane. Like, it's a bit too... And I think it did need to be done at that time by somebody like Lynch, because I think that the industry itself wasn't really ready to handle it. You know, they didn't really have their hands on how to actually do that kind of a story and how to actually present or show that kind of a story. And I think that comes down to like even like a cinematography kind of level of like how to shoot stuff and how to look at stuff. Like have a good one, Eric, bud. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm going a little late tonight, man. I don't care. Even like you think about like this shot right here where he's coming out of the water, right? Or he's coming out of the spice. Like that wouldn't have been done that way, right? They wouldn't have thought about doing it this way and having this kind of like appearance and presentation. And so like I really admire Lynch's attempt, dude. Like that's the one thing. Like I've talked to some people who are just like about that film, and I'm like, no, bro, you gotta really appreciate that attempt, right? I really do love the story of Dune, but even the books, the later ones, I don't know, it just gets a bit too far into it for me, I guess. The reason why the original Dune is so good is because it's a good story well told, right? It's a tight, compact, very clear story of betrayal, of destiny, right? Of a young man seizing his place in the universe, right? Reclaiming the throne that after a coup committed against his family's honor, right? It's got like Shakespearean echoes, and there's like this mystical group, I keep wanting to say Jebediahs. That's definitely wrong. They are not the Jebediahs. And they're not the Jesuits. They're the Jesuits. Anyway. No, not the Fremen. The women. The Bene Jesuits. The Bene Jesuits, right? Yeah, but the Fremen, like all of that, and oh, here we go. Grinning coming hard, though. The 6 Dune books are the greatest treatise on transhumanism ever written. That's strong support, dude. That's strong support. Like, you're really, like, throwing that one right down the pipe. Just being like, fight me, bro. To be fair, I also haven't invested much time into Dune past the first book. And my sense, I kind of am with you on this, Methane. It kind of gets a little wobbly, I guess. And I think that's because, and this probably speaks to what you're saying, Grinning, is that Frank Herbert's interest ceases, or not ceases, but Frank Herbert's interest gravitates more about the message than it is about the story, right? And I feel like when authors begin to focus more on the message than on the story, then the piece as a whole does weaken. It's more difficult to actually go along with the story as a narrative piece when it's more about the message than it is about the story, which isn't to say that people can't go along with it, right? Like if you were to read those books and be like, oh, this is like a transhumanist treatise and I'm down for that and I'm interested, let's go, I guarantee that you would think that that's a really amazing thing. But if you're just a person who wants to read good stories, will it have the kind of impact, or will it be as interesting as you want it to be? You know, that would be my suspicion on Dune, the 6-book series of Dune. Although maybe I should take a crack at it, dude. Like I feel like Dune is like it's an interesting world in and of itself. And of course the idea of the spice and how the spice must flow, and that spice is its importance in interstellar travel. The allegory between it, or the analogy between it and oil, it has been pretty well trodden. But I think that spice being used as just a commodity that has this big importance to the civilization and the society that has been erected is itself an interesting thing to contemplate from the human perspective. There's this one commodity that everybody wants, and so all politics surround it, and everything that we do and we think and we speak and we talk about revolves around this. And then also you have in the story the idea of the Fremen, right? The indigenous population that actually lives on the planet and thereby likely owns it, right? Like if anybody were to own the planet, it would be the worms, obviously, but the Fremen certainly have more claim to the planet of Arrakis than the Harkonnens or the Atrians or the Atriarchs or the I can never fucking remember any of these names, dude. The Harkonnen. Also, Patrick Stewart was in the original, so you gotta love it. You gotta love it. I'm the best at these names, dude. Atreides. I knew it. I did it. I knew it started with an A. And so, like, I'm glad that they're doing a new Dune, but I'm definitely gonna wait until somebody who has seen both, whose opinion I actually give a shit about, says they did it. It's good. Like it's worth the watch. And that to me just speaks to the kind of cultural betrayal that we've just constantly been getting hit with. Don't forget the Orthos, I think. Anyway, more houses. No, yeah, there's a bunch of houses, but the Atreides and the Harkonnens are the ones that play the biggest. Last great big budget action rated R film from Hollywood, Mad Max. Anything else close as of late? Well, and I'm so sick and like I agree with you. Mad Max was good. Like I liked Mad Max, and why? Because of a very simple story, well told, with interesting characters that just didn't like fuck around, right? Like, and it wasn't really trying to tell like a big, like I didn't feel like I was being preached to. I didn't feel like I was being like proselytized or anything. Like it really was just like Mad Max Fury Road. Like I felt like the characters were really strong. The villain was really strong. His modus operandi was so clear. He had control of the water, right? And his propaganda for controlling it was tight, right? You must not fall for the addiction of water, right? Like this kind of crazy thing. And like just straight up like a good story, well told, right? Who doesn't love it? Who doesn't love it? I read the 6 books about every 2 years. Wow, bud, wow. Huge Herbert fan. And you're not really a fan until you know what the Jaspers are. Here you go, bud. Okay, bud. I've never actually, grinning, I gotta tell you, I've never actually met anybody who is actually like a fan of Dune. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've met lots of people who are like into the first book, right? But I've never really met anybody who is like, especially not, you read the 6 books about every 2 years. That makes you a fan, dude. Like, you're in the top percentile. Like, you're absolutely the fan's fan. And what is it that you really like, dude? Like, if you convince me to read this, like, what is it about Dune and about the series of Dune that keeps bringing you back? Like, like, I know you just said this greatest treatise on transhumanism ever written, and that's a pretty big statement, dude. That is, like, a pretty big statement. But it's like, what other deeper kind of statement do you think you have? Because that's enticing. Read the Dosadi Experiment. Mad Max, that kind of film, makes me think of Conan, yeah. The last book weren't even by Frank Herbert, right? That's usually what happens to these authors. Like, it's like Robert Jordan didn't finish his series. It's likely that George R.R. Martin won't finish his series. Tolkien, his last books weren't written by him. I like Frank Herbert because he has a tremendous positive message about life overcoming adversity. Ah, yeah, that's nice. That's true, dude. Yeah, what a lovely statement. Maybe I should give Dune another crack. Because the books aren't very big, right? Like, the books are like that, right? Like, and that's appealing, because a lot of times, like, sci-fi and fantasy can get really, like, you know, book 3. And you're just kind of like, I don't know about My oldest brother, big Dune fan. I don't need to read them, just get him started, sit back and listen. Oh, yeah, that's kind of nice, though. It's kind of nice. You've always got this, like, storyteller ready to go. Hey, bro. This guy here, he's never heard the story of Dune before. Can you give us a synopsis? The story begins on the planet of Arrakis. I bet I could tell the story of Dune pretty cleanly, right? The story of Dune begins on the planet of Arrakis. The Atreides come to lay claim over it while being concerned that they're walking into a trap. The family Harkonnen wants to overthrow them and lay claim to the planet of Arrakis because it's where the spice is. And the spice is what's responsible for powering interstellar engines and interstellar travel. The Harkonnens coup the Atreides. Paul Atreides, the son, flees into the deserts where he encounters the Fremen, trains from them, learns them, and then builds up an army to then turn around and overthrow the Harkonnens and reclaim the planet of Arrakis. After, of course, learning to become worm riders. Right? That's a really clean story, right? Like, that's what I like about Dune. Like, the setting is powerful. There's like a type of magic that exists. Like, the spice brings that kind of feeling. There's prophecy. There's like all of this. But at the end of the day, the story itself is extraordinarily straightforward. Like, and most good stories are like that. And I think that's really what gives Dune the staying power that lots of movies don't have and lots of stories don't have. Yeah, Dune was the first real-time strategy game. That's right. Yeah, I remember. I played that game. That's fun. Also, I think Dune was probably the big inspiration for the movie Tremors, right? If you're unfamiliar with the movie Tremors. Right? Like, the whole plot of Milo. Like, the whole plot of Tremors is that there are underground sandworms who will come up and eat you. The Fremen were abused, but it strengthened them enough to take over the entire galaxy. Just shows that if you try to keep people down, they will evolve. Paul was the bad guy and he knew it? Oh. Are they up to Tremors 8 by now? Probably, dude. How many Tremors? Yeah. Tremors 2, a cold day in hell. Just straight up, when they came to name that one, they were just like, fuck it, cold day in hell, let's go. Yeah, we're setting this one in the Arctic. It's an Arctic one. He can get under the ice, right? He's an Arctic tremor, and so it's Tremors, a cold day in hell. Yeah, Star Wars, oh yeah, probably, right? Tatooine, yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. And what was weird is that eventually at one point, I don't remember when they did it, but there was one of the Tremors movies where it evolved so that instead of being worms that were underground, they actually had legs and were above ground. And there were like Tremors monster above ground. And like it was yeah, there it is. This guy. That was weird. He's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon is great. The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Basically, the idea behind the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon is that any person can be linked to Kevin Bacon through only 6 degrees. And this isn't actually as interesting as you think it is, because it turns out that anybody can be connected to anybody else through 6 degrees of separation, right? And it's fun to be like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and it works with the cadence of 6 degrees of separation, right? It's fun. But there's actually a guy on TikTok who has made his claim to fame is that you can tell him any person, including yourself, and he will find a series of photos that connects him to you or him to whoever you said. And he's very successful at it. And so it's interesting, like how, like we all feel like we're disconnected from one another, but we're actually closer to one another than we think, right? In many cases, it's just 6 degrees, right? Six degrees of Kevin Bacon. Anyway, guys, I went way over time tonight because we got talking about this kind of stuff, and it was nice. It was nice for my soul. Nice for my soul to have a chat like this. Grading, you keep convincing me to read Dune, okay, bud? That's an interesting one to me. It's one of those series that I've like always been kind of interested in, but never really took the plunge. Do you know what I mean? And like each individual book is not so daunting. So maybe that's an interesting one. All right, guys. Like, share, subscribe, bells and whistles, all that kind of stuff. Always remember, you guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it and just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.